All right, good morning, everybody. We are here at the Board of County Commissioners Comprehensive Plan Public Hearing for Wednesday, February 1st, 2023. I will ask the clerk to, we're calling the meeting to order, and the clerk, please, I'm asking for the roll call.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Commissioner Baxter?
Here.
Commissioner Bernard?
Here.
Commissioner Marino?
Here.
Vice Mayor Sachs? Here. Mayor Weiss?
Here.
Commissioner Woodward?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, and we have the pleasure of having Commissioner Baxter lead us in our invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to, please stand.
We ask you, God, to bless this meeting of people who earnestly desire to do their work in the best possible way to benefit those we serve and to leave to our children a better world. Please give us the wisdom and vision to plan adequately and act correctly to achieve these ends. Amen.
Amen.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do we have proof of publication?
Yes, Mayor, we do.
All right. With that, I'd like a motion to receive and file. We have a motion by Commissioner Marino and seconded by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Next, do we have any additions, deletions, or substitutions?
Yes, Mayor, we do. For additions, there was an additional condition of approval added to BC Commerce. That is agreed upon with the applicant, and that is a reduction of the floor area ratio to 0.35. And in addition, there were in excess of 160 pages of additional correspondence received on 5 items that were distributed to the board members yesterday.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have any postponements?
No, we do not.
Okay. With that, we have a motion for adopting the amended agenda. So moved. We have a motion by Commissioner Marino, seconded by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. All right. Moving on, public hearing on item number 3, annual capital improvement element tables.
Okay. Good morning, and I will run through this item briefly. So this is done annually in the first part of the year, and it is to reflect updates to the 5-year road program, capital improvement projects from various departments, including the school board. This item it only involves one hearing, and it reflects the ongoing needs for public facilities to ensure the maintenance of the county's level of service standards. Staff is recommending approval, and the motion would be to adopt an ordinance.
Okay, any questions? If not, we have a motion from the Vice Mayor to adopt and a second from Commissioner Marino. All in favor? All opposed? This motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Now moving on to item 3B. 3B1. This is proposed text amendments, round 23A adoption. And the first one, 3B1, is on Health Human Services element update.
Okay, Mayor. This is a county-initiated amendment to our Health and Human Services element. Mr. Green did provide a presentation at Transmittal and is available today if you would like another presentation.
So this is the adoption. Does anybody need a presentation?
No.
Not seeing any. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bernard, a second by the Vice Mayor. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Next is item 3B2, Green Acres Interlocal Service Boundary Agreement.
Okay. This item, similar to the last, was already before the board for transmittal. And as a refresher, the interlocal agreement, service boundary agreement with the city of Green Acres was approved last September, I believe. Yes. And then per Florida statute, any interlocal service boundary agreements are to be reflected in the local jurisdiction's comprehensive plan. So this item is to simply add that notation in our comprehensive plan reflecting that that ISBA is in place.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Yes. We have a motion from the Vice Mayor, a second from Commissioner Barnett. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Now, moving on to public hearing. We are now on item 4A1. This is the alternative affordable housing approval process text.
Okay, so we have now completed with the adoption items, and this is beginning items for transmittal, and Matthew Briley with the Planning Division will present this first item.
Good morning, Matt Briley with the Planning Division. So I will be presenting the Alternative Affordable Housing Approval Process Text Amendment. So this proposed amendment is in response to recent legislation passed at the state level that affects all cities and counties in Florida. So first, in 2020, the Florida legislature passed House Bill 1339, which in part amended a subsection of Chapter 125 to include the following provision. Notwithstanding any other law or local ordinance or regulation to the contrary, the Board of County Commissioners may approve the development of housing that is affordable, as defined in Statute 420, on any parcel zoned for residential, commercial, or industrial use. And then in 2022, the provision was further expanded through Senate Bill 962, which added that if a parcel is zoned for commercial or industrial use, an approval pursuant to this subsection may include any residential development project, including a mixed-use project, so long as at least 10% of the units are affordable and the developer agrees not to apply for or receive funding from the State Apartment Incentive Loan Program. So the purpose of this legislation is to facilitate the delivery of more affordable housing throughout the state by removing requirements for future land use amendments and rezoning, as well as allowing for deviations from land development regulations. So it's important to note that this legislation does not mandate that BCC approve any projects. You still have the final decision to approve or deny any applications that come before you. So last year, county administration directed staff to assess what the best approach would be for processing requests that might be received under this provision. So staff researched the approaches of other local governments, including St. Petersburg, Jacksonville, and West Palm Beach, and consulted with the Florida Housing Coalition on minimum requirements and common best practices. So essentially, there are a few minimum requirements that must be present for a project to be eligible according to the statute. If zoned residential, the project must be 100% affordable. If zoned commercial or industrial, the project must be at least 10% affordable. And the affordable units in these projects must be affordable to households with an income between 0 and 120% of the area median income. As well, these projects must be approved by the governing body following a public hearing. So from our research, we found that the best practice for how to handle this is to create a policy in the comprehensive plan, which is the text amendment before you today, then to concurrently establish a process that will guide the consideration of these projects. So this process should include eligibility criteria as well as standards for review, since local governments may still regulate development standards as deemed appropriate. So in September, BCC initiated an amendment to incorporate a comprehensive plan policy. And this is the key policy before you today that recognizes your ability, again, not a requirement, to approve projects under this statute. So this new policy would be within the future land use element, and it's titled Alternative Affordable Housing Approval Process, and it reads, the Board of County Commissioners may approve the development of eligible permanent affordable housing projects pursuant to Chapter 125 on any parcel designated on the future land use atlas and the official zoning map for residential, commercial, or industrial use following a public hearing. Affordable housing approved under this policy must comply with the definition of affordable as defined in Section 420 Florida statutes. So this amendment also includes a few other policies. There is a revision to future land use element objective 2.2 to maintain internal consistency. There's a new policy in the housing element that recognizes this new process, and there's a revision to the definition of affordable housing, so it's linked to the state's definition only for these projects. So as far as the process, the application process, this would not be embedded in the comprehensive plan, but it would essentially consist of the following to guide the board's consideration of these requests. There would be a pre-application review, in part to determine if the process is even necessary for a particular request, as there may be an existing process in the code that is more expedient. For projects that will go through with the process, we would recommend a site plan be provided to assist with understanding what the project entails. Procedural requirements. Since a public hearing is required, we would anticipate using the existing Class A process, which takes items to BCC for public hearing. We would also expect to use the existing Type 2 waiver process. This would allow BCC to consider where the project proposes to deviate from existing land development regulations. And then after internal review, these projects would go to the Zoning Commission for a recommendation, then to BCC public hearing for final consideration of the project and any requested waivers. But again, you are under no obligation to approve any projects under the statute. As well, to ensure affordability of approved projects, a restrictive covenant would be required. This covenant could also address the distribution of the units into the various income categories, as we do with the workforce housing program. So possible eligibility criteria. Given the densities we would expect for projects that would use this process, we would anticipate them occurring only in the urban-suburban tier. This would exclude consideration of projects in the Ag Reserve, Rural, Exurban, and Glades tiers. And then within the urban-suburban tier, eligibility could be narrowed further. For example, we could exclude low-density residential zoning categories such as agricultural residential and residential estate, as well as general industrial for compatibility concerns. And then other eligibility criteria is anticipated relating to location, minimum lot sizes, and minimum number of units per project. So we did want to make you aware of a draft bill that was filed last week in the state Senate that could lead to additional changes to this provision. It was filed as Senate Bill 102, also known as the Live Local Bill. Some of the changes include removal of the residential zoning component, so the process I've been discussing thus far would only apply to commercial and industrial zones. And there would be a creation of a new option for commercial and mixed-use zone parcels if the projects are at least 40% affordable for a period of 30 years. So that option would allow projects the highest residential density currently allowed in the jurisdiction. It would allow structures to match the height of the tallest commercial or residential building within 1 mile in the jurisdiction, or 3 stories, whichever is higher. And then if these projects meet the land development regulations for multifamily developments, they must be administratively approved. So again, this is all draft language that was just filed last week, and staff will continue to monitor the proposed bill and any changes that may come of it. So returning to the text amendment that is before you today, to summarize it, the amendment adds a policy in the future land use element that recognizes BCC's authority to approve affordable housing projects on any parcel zoned for residential, commercial, or industrial use. It revises an objective in the future land use element for internal consistency. It adds a policy in the housing element that recognizes the new process, and it revises the definition of affordable housing for these projects. So we presented this concept to the Commission on Affordable Housing in December, as they're tasked with advising the county on matters related to affordable housing. They recommended approval, staff is recommending approval, and the Planning Commission also voted to recommend approval and motion to transmit. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff? Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is with regard to Senate Bill 102 that has been filed and has a House companion. If we transmit today, if we vote on this today, will we need to revisit this vote subsequent to the passage of that bill? I see staff shaking their head, yes. So if I could have something on the record, that would be good.
Yes, Vice Mayor, you are correct. So we are actively monitoring this as it progresses through the legislature and would have implications if adopted, and would involve some modifications post-transmittal. But yes, we are keeping a close eye on that bill.
Okay. So we can go ahead, we can move forward, if I may. What we should do today is move forward on this, and then if in fact it passes and is signed into law, then we'll revisit this
Right.
at that date. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Is there any advantage of passing this today and not waiting until we see if that Senate bill goes through?
That certainly is an option of the board. I will say, and yesterday at the workshop, a gentleman did come up referring to this process, so I know we've started to see a little bit of an uptick in people asking us how we're handling this process, so could transmit it and we could move forward because it's possible that Senate Bill 102 doesn't pass, or if the board prefers to, hold off, that's certainly the discretion of the board.
I guess I would just like to ask that the rural and ex-urban tier be excluded if we do pass this today.
Yes,
Just to clarify, this is transmittal. This has
Right.
come back for adoption. So
Just letting it,
understood. So we'll have another bite at this apple to actually put in place how we want it to be implemented.
all right, thank you.
Mayor, thank you. I just want to kind of echo Kevin's words. We're responding to legislation that's on the books now. The bill is prospective. We will follow it. Should it be adopted, then it'll have an implementation date as well. There could be a point down the road. We will react and respond as necessary when that comes about.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. I guess, and just following up on the timing, when would we expect to have the adoption hearing for this?
This would come back to you in May.
In May. So they'll have already concluded, and we'll know exactly where they stand. So that'll give us an opportunity to adjust or not move forward or whatever. Okay?
I'll make a motion, we transmit.
Okay, so we have a motion from from Commissioner Marino to transmit. We have a second from the Vice Mayor. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all in favor, all opposed. That motion carries 7-0. Okay. Moving on, we are now on to item 4A2. This is a county proposed Heritage Farms Rural Overlay text.
And Travis Goodson with the Planning Division will present this item.
Morning, Travis.
Good morning. Good morning, Travis Goodson for the Planning Division. This item before you today is a county-initiated text and map series amendment for the creation of the Heritage Farms Rural Overlay. This amendment proposes to revise the future land use element to add a new sub-objective and policies to establish an overlay for the Heritage Farms area and to update the special planning areas map in order to depict the boundaries of the new overlay. So some recent events, how did we get here? Beginning in February of 2022, a few residents had reached out and met with staff regarding development proposals in their area. These conversations had led up to the BCC initiating a request for a neighborhood plan for Heritage Farms. However, after residents had approached the then district commissioner, the board had initiated an overlay at their August 25th, 2022 hearing, at which point staff began the work and coordination on this overlay. So generally, Heritage Farms encompasses an area of approximately 1,300 acres, generally located west of State Road 7 and south of Lantana Road within the rural tier. To the north and east is the urban-suburban tier. The Ag Reserve borders to the south and southwest, and the Homeland subdivision, also within the rural tier, borders to the northwest. The area has a predominantly rural residential 1 unit per 10 acres future land use designation, with only 3 parcels having a commercial low flu designation. The Heritage Farms area supports a mix of residential, equestrian, and agricultural uses. And so this map depicts the proposed boundaries for the Heritage Farms overlay. The proposed boundary includes a majority of the Heritage Farms area that was shown on the previous slide, with the exception of the hiatus parcels to the north, which are physically separated from the rest of Heritage Farms and have access through Lantana Road. The Trotting Center amendment shown in the yellow hashing, which came before this board for transmittal and was transmitted last November. It has its own separate overlay proposal currently in process. And then the southeastern commercial parcel next to Trotting Center, because it would be non-contiguous to this proposed overlay. While we're on this map, I do want to point out that an application was submitted in November proposing a similar overlay to allow increased density in the blue hashing area, and we're going to call that the Yee and Cypress parcels. It has a similar name to this overlay, so we'll call it the Yee and Cypress parcels, but I wanted to bring that to your attention as that will be on this agenda later on today. So just to know that it's within the proposed boundaries right now. It came in November. Ultimately, The Board of County Commissioners has full discretion on the final boundaries and can make adjustments if so desired through the hearing process today. So as part of the future land use element, the comprehensive plan contains policies specific to the rural tier contained within Objective 1.4, with the overall objective to provide strategies to protect and enhance rural settlements that support agricultural and equestrian-based uses. Many of these existing policies recognize the rural residential, agricultural, equestrian character of the rural tier. And also, comprehensive plan language directs the ULDC to provide for specific rural zoning regulations that further achieve the objective and policies of the rural tier, such as allowing agricultural residential uses, promoting rural character through specific design criteria. And so the proposed Heritage Farms rural overlay would be nested as part of the rural tier, and accordingly, the overlay will have a sub-objective. Summarily, the sub-objective recognizes Heritage Farms as a longstanding community and aims to preserve its rural residential, agricultural, and equestrian character. The next policy would be to establish the proposed boundaries, with the specific boundaries being depicted on the Special Planning Areas map, Land Use 3.1. Those boundaries were shown to you just a couple of slides ago and may be modified. Next policy it regards density and will require that any method of obtaining an increase in density than what is currently allowed and is subject to final action by the Board of County Commissioners shall be approved by at least 5 members of the board. So this policy serves as a means of garnering greater consensus on decisions that are affecting density increases in the area. Next is a policy statement written to encourage the planting and preservation of native vegetation within the overlay. This policy further supports the identity of Heritage Farms as a low-density residential and agricultural area within the rural tier where less developed land and native vegetation are commonly found. And then lastly, staff have included a policy statement encouraging the continuation and expansion of agricultural and equestrian uses within the boundaries of the overlay, which is consistent with and supplements to the existing rural tier policies regarding the same. And so as we walked through and as discussed in the staff report, the proposed text amendment to establish the overlay adds policy guidance to support the continuation and preservation of the rural character of this area. Proposed sub-objective and policies would apply to parcels within the boundary of the overlay and build upon existing rural tier policies. It encourages continuation of the rural residential densities through enhanced level of board approval for any density increases, and it promotes the retention and preservation of native vegetation and the continuation and expansion of agricultural uses typical of the rural tier. So considering all of this, staff analysis, and again is further detailed in the staff report, has found that the proposed overlay supports the area's rural, agricultural, and equestrian character, and it's consistent with existing rural tier policies, and as such, furthers related goals, objectives, and policies contained within the comprehensive plan. Okay, community participation. Planning Division staff has coordinated with the property owners and interested parties beginning around in September of 2022, shortly after the board's initiation of this text amendment. And we utilized several ways to communicate information and encourage feedback. That included a web page, informational meetings, postal and electronic mailings. The first 2 meetings were held virtually, and the October 12th, 2022 meeting was held in person over at the Vista Center. Staff has received a number of correspondence from area residents and property owners regarding this overlay. Those who support the overlay generally indicate they believe it will help protect the rural way of life from encroaching development and high intensity or density. Those who are opposed to the overlay have expressed concerns regarding negative effects to their agricultural businesses and property rights. The slide says 2 p.m., but I was able to get another correspondence in. So as of 4 p.m. yesterday, staff has calculated a 57% property owner response rate. So 54 of the roughly 95 property owners in the boundaries of the overlay have provided feedback to staff. Of that correspondence received, 65% of the responding property owners are in support of the overlay, whereas 35 oppose. When the responses are analyzed by the amount of acreage owned by each property owner, because some property owners own more than one parcel, those numbers become 41% in support and 59% in opposition. Just another way to look at some of the data that we were able to collect and provide to you. And so in summary, the data informs that a majority of the responding property owners are in favor of the proposed overlay, while those who are in opposition and have concerns own a greater combined amount of land within the proposed boundaries. And so today, staff is recommending approval. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a 9-0 vote at the Planning Commission hearing earlier this month. And the recommended motion to you today would be to transmit. So that'll conclude, and we're here to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So as everyone knows, this is my district, and when I started digging into the numbers, could we pull up the for and against map, please? Something that struck me was the amount of land that was actually against this, and that is what this directly affects. I would like to see the residents come to more of a consensus than this, ideally. So I would like, I guess, to know if there was any, somebody had mentioned a different process or path forward, but I would have to talk to you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, you're recognized.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Could you explain to us how the overlay encourages agriculture and promotes the agrarian and equestrian way of life?
So agricultural and equestrian-based uses are currently allowed within the rural tier, and they're allowed and encouraged by the comprehensive plan through existing rural tier policies and further through the current zoning code regulations. So we have those policies in place, and so we've added policy statements to this overlay that will specifically encourages that more of these uses be allowed. And so if something were to come through a review process, it would be something that staff would be looking at as well.
May I?
Continue, please.
Thank you very much. Listen to my question. How does the overlay, because that was one of the statements from staff, how does the overlay encourage agricultural and equestrian uses in this site?
So just to add a little bit to that, so let's say a residential development is proposed on this that the board is going to consider. So as part of our staff analysis and our staff report, we would include that policy in our staff report and analyze it, whether or not the residential development could encourage agricultural or equestrian uses. So there's a potential, the residential development could include some horse stalls or could include some little farming area. In that case, we would say it's consistent. If it was just straight homes, then we would say it's not consistent with that policy. And then the board can make a decision as to whether or not you all would like to adopt it in that scenario.
Okay. So specifically to this point, then, if in fact we have a residential area planned that has stalls and barns in their backyard, 5-acre lots, I would imagine, to have horses, or there would be small family farms that would be planned for this area, then that in fact would encourage agriculture and equestrian uses.
Correct, yes.
Correct. If there were other uses, so I guess we have to wait and see. If there are uses that are proposed for this area that are not agricultural or equestrian based, then that would not encourage agricultural and equestrian uses in the overlay.
Yep, you got it.
All right. I am a fast learner. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Would this overlay limit the landowner's ability in the future of their uses or what they could do with their own property?
Specific to the density part, if an application were to come in and let's say a property owner has 10 acres and they want to put more than the allowable density that's on it, and it requires approval by this board, then the policy for density would require that there's a 5-member vote approval by the board. If it came in for agriculture or equestrian, it wouldn't be subject to anything additional.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions from the board at this time? I don't see any. Okay, we have a number of members of the public that wish to be heard. So Commissioner Marino will be calling your names. We are going to allot 3 minutes per speaker. Brevity is always appreciated if you support or oppose, and you don't need to use your entire 3 minutes. We certainly wouldn't argue with that, so.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 2 podiums, so please pick one. I will call several names. Come on up. Kevin Bergman, followed by Roland Yee, followed by Michelle Burns, and then Sal Saldana.
Good morning. My name's Kevin Bergman. I own 5 acres at 6561 Park Lane West. I'm opposed of this. My first question referencing the overlay was the number 2, and that was the ratio of 1 home every 5 acres. Why would you allow a home to be built at 6249 Park Lane West on less than 1 acre already? So that's a question I have. We're already allowing homes to be built on 1 acre, and it's not right. So by allowing this, the county made it possible for all small parcels and heritage farms to be built on, is another question. Because there's multiple small parcels and heritage farms. And is this part of what the overlay is proposing, is to have 1 acre parcels being able to be built on? I oppose the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Roland Yee with Yee Farm, 7501 South State Road 7, Lake Worth. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm here representing my family to respectfully request exclusion of our property from the county-initiated Heritage Farms Rural Overlay, an option that staff alluded to earlier in their presentation. My family's parcel at 7501 South State Road 7 is approximately 57 acres that fronts State Road 7 and abuts the Trotting Center to the north. The assemblage of my family's property and Cypress Polo's 40 acres adjacent to my west is nearly an exact mirror image of the Trotting Center, with the Yee Cypress project being slightly smaller in size. Both the Yee Cypress project and the Trotting Center project share a common property boundary and have the same linear feet of State Road 7 road frontage. Both are sandwiched between 2 commercially zoned parcels. Directly to the east of both projects is LR2 density, and 2,700 feet to the south, east of State Road 7, is LR3 density. Both are requesting identical density with lot gradation. Ultimately, both projects have nearly identical text amendments which have been submitted. One of the few differences, however, is my family's property is the only parcel within all of Heritage Farms that does not border any roads within Heritage Farms, thus having no impact on Heritage Farm infrastructure. My family's farm is a fourth-generation operation. My family farm is a fourth-generation operation, farming since 1940, and of those 83 years, over 50 of those have been in Palm Beach County. We purchased our property in 1984. This was well before anyone currently living in Heritage Farms moved into Heritage Farms, and 15 years before the establishment of the county management growth tier system, placing my family's property in the rural tier. The purchase of our property was 38 years before the Trotting Center was sold to Lynx at Lake Worth earlier last year for the sole purpose of increasing density for development. To allow a property that was knowingly purchased in the rural tier under speculation less than a year ago to be excluded from the county-initiated Heritage Farms overlay yet not allow an adjacent near mirror image property that has been owned and operated for 38 years by a bona fide agricultural business with over 50 years of history in Palm Beach County, the same opportunity would be nothing short of favoritism. To be fair and just, we respectfully request our property be treated as the near identical trotting center parcel and be excluded from the county-initiated Heritage Farms overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Burns, 10301 Heritage Farms Road. I am here once again to ask for your support in helping the Heritage Farms community remain what it was intended to be, a rural area made up of residential and agricultural uses in the low-density rural tier, which is supposed to protect us. We moved here because it's unique and we want to keep it that way. During the past 5 years, with the help of code enforcement, we were able to weed out all the illegal businesses that were destroying our way of life, roads, safety, etc. We were able to meet with all of you, except for one, concerning the overlay for Heritage Farms. We certainly appreciate your taking the time to listen to our concerns. This added layer of protection will not change any current land uses. Those on the map in red are opposing the overlay are obviously the largest two tracts, the Yee and Polo property. No one is objecting to selling their properties. It's not our right. A different buyer that had plans not to have such a high density would have been wonderful. But again, the county seems to keep giving in to the developers no matter where and what they want to build. The other large tracts of property are owned, approximately 36 acres are owned by the Love families. In their objection letters to the county, they all stated they did not want the overlay, and yet their next sentence in their statements said they did not want the trotting center. Well, you can't have it both ways. And now they have Pulte Development trying to get into their front yards. Another 15 acres are owned and operated by previously illegal businesses. They too objected to the overlay, but stated they wanted to keep the properties for farming and rural way of life for their future generational families. We need an added layer of protection to keep another development from coming in and taking away the reason we came to Heritage Farms: peace and open space. Please listen to the staff approval and help us keep Heritage Farms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sal Saldana, Sumner Chase, Michelle Lanchanes, and Jane Thompson.
Good morning. My name is Sal Saldana, owner of Lions Nursery, 6560 Park Lane West. We have a nursery for 22 years, and we would like to keep Heritage Farms as it was. Some of these new owners, they come 2, 3, 5 years ago, they want to change the use of the property to suit their means. They should have checked the area before they bought, so we don't have to change how we do business to support them. I'm against the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Sumner Chase. I own the property at 10179 Heritage Farms Road. I purchased the property several years ago because of its rural and low-density development rules, and I strongly support the Heritage Farms overlay to help preserve the character of our neighborhood. I currently have bees and a nursery growing edible plants on my 7-acre property and plan to build a house there as well. I want to remind everyone that a year ago at the Commissioners' meeting, there were almost 50 residents of Heritage Farms who testified at the meeting were overwhelmingly against the landscape businesses that had been illegally operating in our community. The board culminated years of discussion by subsequently denying the landscape waiver requests and preserving the low-density residential and agricultural character of our neighborhood. We're now testifying again in an attempt to reaffirm the rural and agricultural nature of our community. I understand that everyone wants to live in Florida, and I love the freedom we have here also, but there's a reason we have zoning in order to avoid overcrowding and manage our growth. Please do not let the land speculators and the financial interests of property developers influence your vote but instead I urge you to consider the hard work and high quality of your planning staff who has analyzed and approved this overlay, as well as your planning commission, which has voted unanimously to approve it. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Michelle Anthony's. I own several parcels in Heritage Farms. I'd like to begin with, yesterday we lost a long-standing member of our community. Mike Hebert was a good friend, and we're going to miss him, and we give our regards to his family. I really believe that Mike and Terry signed this because they thought, or they believed that they could keep the development out of this development community. But really what everyone is trying to do is make this a homeowners association where they can give us more and more regulations on things that we can do, things that we can plant in our yard, what we can build in our backyard, and that's not right. We moved here years and years ago because we could do what we wanted to do out here. Nobody could tell us we can't do it. We got along as a community. We fixed the roads. We increased the values of our properties. And now you're going to tell me that I can't build on my property when someone directly across the street can? I should have the same allowance as those people. And when it gets so crowded that I don't want to live here, I want to be able to sell it to someone who's going to buy it and give me the best value, and not be stuck where I am because nobody wants it where you can't do anything with it. Please, please listen to what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jane Thompson. I live at 6315 Park Lane West. I've lived there since 1998. That's about 25 years. And I am for the overlay, most importantly for the wildlife. I'm on the furthest northwest corner of Park Lane West. It's about as far as you can go. And on my property, every year, I get alligators that breed in my ponds. There are bobcat that traverse our area. I have a 2.5 acre cypress head where a lot of wildlife resides. I've been watching for the past 25 years wetlands constantly getting filled into the east of 441, and now it just keeps coming west. When the key members of our community came to you last year, you asked them to work across the aisle with these developers, which they have done, and I am in agreement with where they have arrived with this overlay. So I am for the overlay. Having the 5 commissioners on board to approve any development moving forward after the overlay is in place would further bolster due diligence in the approval process to continue to protect the rural tier west of 441, which is why we moved out there 25 years ago, was, like she said, for space and peace and privacy. It's a special place out there. Please protect our way of life by approving this overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Stephanie Zetterlund, Jason Pierre-Paul, Carolyn McKay, David Kinports. Thank you. You can use either microphone.
I'm Stephanie Zetterlund. I live at 10770 Barn Road. I appreciate the members of the board listening to us today. We're pretty much fighting for our neighborhood the way it was. My husband and I moved to Heritage Farms in 2000. It was because of the peaceful country lifestyle that it offered, and we've been there for 23 years. We support the efforts being made to preserve the rural character of this community, especially by means of the rural tier protection. It's unique out here. It should be preserved. We live on the south end, as far as you can go on Barn Road. We have smaller lots than the northern area, but we still are agricultural. We have a country lifestyle there, farming, animals, plants that we nurture. This is a special place. I value the life out here, and it's very important to me to keep it that way and to pass the Heritage Farms overlay to protect our little piece of paradise. Like the previous speaker, I see wildlife every day. Every time I open my window and look out, I look for something to move. It could be a bobcat, it could be an otter, anything. We see deer that migrate from Barn Road through the Yee Farm or the cypress polo fields all the way to the cemetery. They have a way of life there. We enjoy seeing them. They need their space, and we enjoy that they have a place to live as well. So we would like to keep our paradise. It's not a small or not a large area, but it's ours, and we love the environment. So we hope that you will help us to protect it and support the overlay.
Thank you. You recognize, sir.
Good morning. I'm David Kinports. I've lived in Heritage Farm for 12 years. I am in support of the overlay for a lot of the reasons stated already. In my yard, I have deer, coyote, bobcat, alligator nests, as Jane does, otters, fox, you name it. And I would appreciate approving the overlay to keep my yard as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You recognize.
Good morning. My name is Carolyn McKay. My husband and I live at 7302 Park Lane Road. Our property is a 40-acre parcel that is adjacent to the Yee property on its eastern border and adjacent to the Trotting Center on its southern border. We purchased our property in '06 and have worked for the last 17 years, 7 days a week, to build our equestrian-based property, Cypress Polo Club. Our property is being represented later on today's agenda for a hopeful initiation of its own text amendment. Cypress Polo Club, in combination with the Yee property, is a continuous mirror image of the Trotting Center, totaling close to 100 acres with 441 road frontage. As an assembled parcel, the Yee Cypress Polo property lies to the south of the heart of Heritage Farms. In fact, it doesn't even need Heritage Farm for road access. I'm asking that Cypress Polo and Yee Farm be omitted from the Heritage Farm overlay and allowed to pursue its own text amendment, as you have allowed the Trotting Center to do. Although none of county staff reached out to me regarding my plans for our property, I've spoken to many of my neighbors that are both for and against this overlay. And their plans for their properties are just as important to them as mine are to me. And while it is important to realize that Cypress Polo Yee property has its own characteristics different from those in the heart of Heritage Farm and should be omitted from this overlay, it's important to have consensus for the whole neighborhoods of Heritage Farm, and that should be taken into consideration when deciding on the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jason.
It's on me?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Thank
All
you.
right, cool. My name is Jason Pierre-Paul. I live in 10689 Heritage Farm in Lake Worth. I have a 10-acre property there. I bought it like maybe 3 years ago. I'm currently active in NFL right now. And I bought the property to, when I retired, to actually have my peaceful family live over there because it's a big piece of property. And I basically oppose the overlay.
Thank you. And for those of you that don't know, Jason is a member, won the Super Bowl with the Giants. So thank you. Go Giants. Darren Arathopa, I hope I pronounced that right. John Kern, Susan Roach, Risa McCarch.
These are for Heritage Farms. They keep coming in. You got to stop that.
Oh,
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time and for your service. My name is Darren, and I own a tropical plants nursery in Heritage Farms. And like many of my fellow growers, I oppose the overlay because it will actually hurt agriculture. I'm a new grower, and I'm working on my second production of houseplants. I'm really grateful to the county staff, code enforcement, USDA inspectors, and the ag community who have helped me get up and running, so thank you. I really appreciate the state and the county's efforts to preserve agriculture in Palm Beach while addressing the needs for housing. I believe that the intent of the overlay is to preserve agriculture. However, I'm concerned that the overlay recharacterizes the neighborhood from agricultural to rural lifestyle. I'm afraid that to some, rural lifestyle means estates, like the Hamptons or Nantucket. This is important because you can see the boundary of the overlay has been stretched and contorted at the southern border to include Barn Road. And contrary to what was represented to the planning committee by the residents, I checked each of the properties, and none of them have a bona fide ag use. In fact, if you look at the petition from the residents in the staff report, the majority of those voting for the overlay do not have a bona fide ag use. This is critical because it means that within this proposed boundary, those of us that do have a bona fide ag use and that oppose the overlay are outnumbered by estate owners. Staff is mainly recommending the overlay because the estate owners outnumber bona fide ag within this boundary. So this is just the beginning of rules that favor estate owners to the detriment of ag. This scares me because the intention of the estate owners has been to drive out commercial traffic and turn it into an estate area. This intention was made clear when a leading estate owner posted a sign at the entrance of the neighborhood without a permit declaring Heritage Farms a private estate area. This terrified me. For those of us that rely on agriculture for a living, we rely on commercial traffic and trucking. And I don't have shiny red trucks with chrome finish. I have soil being delivered like in dusty trucks. I have production waste carried away in dump trucks. I have customers sending trailers to pick up plants. Without trucking, those of us that rely on agriculture will be reduced to hobby farms. I have a mortgage on the land. I pay employees good wages with benefits. And for me to make it, I need to keep up my production. For sure, I will not make it as a hobby farm. If commercial traffic is banned from the area from HOA, I will be forced to sell the property, which will be converted into another estate, turning Heritage Farms into the Hamptons of Lake Worth. Please protect my right to farm and vote against the overlay. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is John Kern, and for the record, I am the zoning commissioner for District 2, and I have been for the last 4 years. I do not reside in Heritage Farms, and I am not I do not have an invested interest in Heritage Farms, but what I do have for you guys today is a very unique look on the overlay. I am a member of the Pioneer Road Property Owners Association, whatever you want to call it, but we are the first rural enclave that was initiated by this board, and we thank you so much for that. Being a rural enclave doesn't restrict anybody's right to do anything. All it's going to do is ask for just one more step of consideration. Agricultural neighborhoods exist in our community today. Arden, off of State Road 80, has an agricultural feel. It has a community farm that actually distributes vegetables to the members of the community who participate in the farm. Nobody's saying that. I've been on the zoning commission for a little over 4 years. I know better than anyone that development is important and housing is important, but we can't continue to push out the people in these types of neighborhoods further and further just to have more and more high rises in homes. It's a very delicate balance. When this comes back for approval, you have the ability to make some concessions, whether it's the concession of the boundaries of the entire neighborhood, whether it's concessions of the residents involved. So rather than a straight up yes or no, you get to make those choices, and you did so for my neighborhood. And my neighborhood is better for it. Nobody's restricting what these homeowners can and can't do and when they can and can't sell. That would be against the rules, and the attorneys would jump up and down and start yelling immediately that we can't do that, and they're right, we can't. But what we can do is just give one extra step of consideration. So I am in support of the overlay. I thank you for what you've done for my neighborhoods and the rest of the overlays in the county itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
I am Susan Roach, 6329 Park Lane West. My husband and I have been in Heritage Farms for over 25 years. We have 5 acres. We own dogs, cats, horses. We moved out here to enjoy the rural lifestyle. We enjoy hearing the chickens, the horses, the cows, and the peacocks. We love the wildlife surrounding our house. Please approve our overlay plan as it affords our unique neighborhood some extra protection from the land speculators that have bought or will be buying property in our neighborhood. As you can see, we are longtime property owners. This is a neighborhood with a very low property turnover because our residents love the rural lifestyle and this unique place. So please give us that one extra county commission vote that we need for any future land changes or uses. And please approve the overlay to protect Heritage Farms from high-density development. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Risa McCarher, 6569 Park Lane East. I just want to thank you guys, as usual, for all that you do for our community. We have been attempting to protect our rural community for years. This is not the first time this has come before you. There's a lot of misconception and propaganda spread about what this overlay will do. No one, not one person in our community wants an HOA. No one wants to take away anyone's rights. No one wants to see any of that happen. And this does not do that. All we want is a little bit of protection for the incoming snowball effect that's already started. You let the trotting center in. Now Yee wants in. Who's next? Are we just going to let all of Heritage Farms be developed? Or shall we take a step and try to protect us from high-density development? In your comprehensive plan, it states that you're to protect diverse ways of life and keep development to the east where it belongs. We're not asking for anything crazy. All we're asking for is a little bit of help out there. We have been doing this for 8 years coming up here. You guys have seen all my kids grow up. You're seeing the next one now. I mean, I don't want to trudge up here every day, and I'm sure you don't want to see us. We just want a little bit of protection, and no one is trying to take away anyone else's rights. And God, no one wants a dang HOA. So please understand, we just want a little bit of protection. And everything that they're saying in opposition is exactly what we're asking for with the overlay. So please help them understand, and please protect us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard Moyrud, Andy Wyant, Keely Haverland, Barbara Broth.
Richard Moyrud, 7667 Park Lane Road, that's in Park in Heritage Farms. So, as you've heard, Heritage Farms is a planned rural community that was established 60 years ago. The first resident was Rosa Durando, who is familiar to members of this commission going back many years. She still lives there. It is not vacant land waiting to be subdivided and developed. And unregulated development is not wise planning. You have a responsibility. As said before, the overlay will simply confirm one fact. Heritage Farms is a real community with families, equestrian businesses, agricultural uses such as plant nurseries. I have operated my native plant nursery for 42 years. The overlay will not change any existing zoning or uses. As before, landowners are free to request changes to the comprehensive plan. It'll come to you. The only requirement is that you get one additional commissioner. Really, really minor. Heritage Farms is a long-established, vibrant neighborhood. Any reasonable person would agree with this simple recognition of fact. I hope that the commission still values facts and votes responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Andy Wyant. I've been living at 10824 Barn Road since last May. I moved in with my mom last year, and I've fallen in love with this rural lifestyle. And I just got one little phrase to say here. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. I don't want to see Heritage Farms go and end up being just swallowed up by a suburban sprawl. I mean, I like this bucolic lifestyle. I don't want it to see it go away. And therefore, all we ask is one extra commissioner vote added to the, whatever they call it, the amendment, whatever they call it. And just ask for one extra vote, and that's all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Keely Haverland, Barbara Roth, Drew Martin, Gail Ladd.
Good morning. My name is Keely Haverland. I'm president of Florida Nursery Grower and Landscape Association for Palm Beach, also a landowner in Heritage Farms. I have to tell you guys, this is going to open Pandora's box in a major, major way if this overlay goes into place. This overlay is highly, highly inappropriate. For starters, in the first 3 meetings, staff gave 0 information. They gave examples of what an overlay is. So we had 3 first meetings, had no information. Not to mention, the slides they showed us were incorrect and outdated by their own admission. This is a rush job, a further attack on nursery and landscape industry. We're protected by state because we don't want local government putting any extra regulations on us, not even an extra vote, nothing. Stay off of our property, please. The county is currently under a self-conducted investigation into excessive abuse and actions by code enforcement, for which many of those victims are in Heritage Farms. Many of them were promised a DRO process many years ago and have never to this day made it through that process. So what this does is adds insult to injury, is the knife twist to all the businesses that have lost in Heritage Farms. I'm asking you as a property owner and as a representative of the nursery industry to please keep local government off of our farms. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, and I'm especially pleased to have met the new Commissioner, Mr. Barnett, this morning. So thank you for hearing me. I am Barbara Roth, 6776 Rienzo in Lake Worth, and I'm speaking on behalf of COBRA. However, to be very clear, the Heritage Farm neighbors to some of our COBRA communities are not members of COBRA. However, they are right across State Road 7 from several of our communities, including mine. Those communities are Solabella, Savannah, Valencia Shores, Melrose, and my community, Bellagio. And as such, COBRA takes an interest in the development that directly affects our communities. We support this overlay. May I say also that I serve as a planning commissioner, honored to have been appointed to the Planning Commission, and it was nice to see Mr. Kern, who serves on zoning. I was very pleased several years ago to vote for that overlay at Pioneer Road, and just the beginning of this month voted for the overlay for Heritage Farms. We all are aware of the imperatives that are upon all of us who are making decisions in Palm Beach County to keep this the best county in the state of Florida. We understand the push, the imperative, the density, the traffic implications, and as such, COBRA urges all of us to look at that carefully. This overlay in protecting the lifestyle that is already there will continue to protect all of the communities along State Road 7. If not, there is, we believe, a greater likelihood to be pushed to some higher density uses, and I'll speak to some of that later. But I thank you so much for this opportunity and your consideration.
Thank you. You're recognized.
Drew Martin, I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club for Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie counties. And I want to start by saying I was educated about Heritage Farms by Rosa Durando, and she told me how important it was to her, how the wildlife was. She has peacocks, and talked about the deer and the fact that there were wetlands, and how this was not your typical Palm Beach County, and people moved out there because they didn't want to be in typical Palm Beach County. Now, the people opposing this are throwing all kinds of misinformation out there. First of all, the state has the Right to Farm Act. Nobody's being told they can't farm on their property. Primarily, what the people wanted to do is have a lot of landscaping vehicles out there. And as Rissa and some of her other neighbors took pictures, I mean, it was a nightmare. They were destroying the roads. They were running hundreds of vehicles in and out of there during, the early morning hours. And, the people who live there oppose that. And they had every right to oppose that. Now, the next thing is that I personally don't support the trotting center, but I know some of the people out there do. I think the county basically blackmailed the residents out there.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can you keep your comments to what's in front of us right now? This is on the overlay?
Right. Well, that was what I was addressing.
Oh, I thought we'd gone on to the trotting center.
Well, the trotting center is part of that area. It's affected by it. So I'm addressing that because the trotting center is what, started this whole thing. That's why they started the overlay, because they didn't want the trotting center. So that's why I'm addressing that. I support the comments from your zoning commissioner. He's sat through the meetings. I think he sounds very well educated, and his arguments make a lot of sense. What I'm trying to address is what COBRA's addressing, and that is the overall long-term impacts of turning this into significant development. All the overlay does is require a little additional, requirement that you have to have an extra vote. So I think it's very important that you appreciate, and without understanding the history, you can appreciate that you appreciate what you have here, how important it is to the county, and how important it is to the taxpayers. So I support the overlay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, I'm Gail Ladd from Jupiter, Florida. I don't live down there, but it sounds like a wonderful place to live. And I noticed that as far as the property owners go, 65% are in favor of this overlay. And it sounds like when I hear both sides of the story, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult decision. But because the property owners, most of them, do favor this, I do support the motion to transmit. I'm a member of the Sierra Club Loxahatchee group, and Drew Martin is very good at explaining things, but I just think it's important for you to really think about what the property owners as a whole really are in favor of. So I ask that you support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, I apologize, I can't read your last name, who lives on Park Lane. Henry Tanzer, Wanda Thompson, Joseph Bistone.
Hi, I live at 6943 Park Lane Road, Linda Zur. And I want to clarify, I live on a farm, not an estate. And I have about 15 acres. I moved there just for agriculture and horses, which I have about 15 horses. So it's strictly a farm. There's nothing else. I want to point out that the price per acre that the developers are paying are about $148,000. It's no different than anybody else would pay. So if it's about money, it's It's the same. It's the same. You'll actually probably make more selling them individually. Recently, it was listed beside us in Homeland, $10 million 5-acre farm. I don't know why that's bothering people. They're worried about not making money. The other thing is, oh my goodness, I can't read my notes. I wanted to understand why our commissioner couldn't meet with us until February, our group, when she met with us prior to get votes. And anyway, I'm for the overlay.
Thank you.
My name is Hank Tanzer. I have a piece of property on Park Lane Road, 7309. I'm across the street from where your overlay is excluding the trotting center and the other properties. My concern is I bought 20 years ago, and I oppose the overlay for the reason that I would like to have the same rights as when I bought the property going forward. I think that's the only fair thing to do. I made a business decision back then. I had a landscape company on my property, let me preface that, and I've since removed that. I removed my buildings from it, and unfortunately I find it I'm unable to run my nursery off of it, which I did for 15 years, because I'm not co-located any longer. So I can't have my laborers that were working my landscape company working the fields. So in turn, at this present time, I am trying to sell my land, and I really just don't want any more restrictions on my present piece of property. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. You're recognized, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Wenda Thompson. I own 2 10-acre parcels in Heritage Farm, and I operate a nursery where last year we grew and sold 2.5 million plants that were all distributed locally in southeastern Florida here. I am here because I would like to ask you to deny or at least delay this overlay. I feel it has been rushed. I feel there hasn't been enough participation. I feel there hasn't been enough information. The meetings that I have attended, there hasn't been a single meeting to actually negotiate what might be in an overlay. We've just been given a copy of what Pioneer Road has. So, aside from that, I also look at these numbers and I don't see a consensus. I see a split. And if we're going to what I think damage our property values and limit our future uses, there better be an incredibly high, sorry, I had a word there. Anyway, so there better be an incredibly high level of consensus, not split when you look at it on ownership versus acreage versus head count. I think it's one of the main reasons to delay or deny this overlay. I also question the claim over and over that Heritage Farms is special. It is special, but it's also a result of the code that exists and the 40 or 50 or 80 years that has driven it to be what it is. And so to change the natural development of that now, I think is unfair, and I guess I just don't understand how it is conceivable that, at the same time you are letting someone exercise the right they currently have, the trotting center and the other 2 acres or properties, you're actually restricting mine to do the exact same thing. And so I also don't agree that it's just a small thing, one more vote. It is a big thing, or they wouldn't ask for it. And so, for those reasons, I'm also against it. I think there hasn't been a tax analysis. I think other configurations have never been considered. We've been given one map and it's never changed. Why is the National Cemetery in it? I just don't understand that. I also think there's a big splotch of red south and not so much north. There's other configurations that could be considered. I also think there's no protection for agriculture. I believe the sign they put up, as far as I'm concerned, said, if you're coming to A&W Annuals, you're in the wrong place, because it said it was an equestrian center. They said it was private, so you're not welcome. It said no commercial uses and no trespassing. That's not the sign I want outside my business. And so I don't agree with their sentiments that they are not trying to change it. And I'm out of time, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Joseph Biston, Mo.
Good morning.
Schmei.
My name is Joseph Biston. I have the property 7495 Park Lane Road. First to the commissioners, I want to thank you all. I want to bless you health, happiness, and success, and wisdom to make a very fair decision today. I think the property there is a very precious property. Just like every county and every state and every city has natural parks, so people can enjoy the fresh air, etc. And although this is not a park, but I am for the overlay because I believe that even though there's going to be a lot of development on the side of us, nevertheless, there has to be some areas where we can enjoy our freedom, our peace, our happiness, and it's fresh air. So I am for the overlay, and I think it's not changing the zoning because we always zoned for AG agriculture. So just to keep the zoning and keep the overlay. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Mo Danish Meyer. I have a 10-acre parcel on Heritage Farms Road on the south side, 10400. And I oppose the overlay. I don't believe we need any more restrictions. We're fine the way it is. We have found our way through all the time that the Heritage Farm has been agricultural, and the way it's been, just been fine. We don't need any more overlay. I believe the overlay proposal seems to me it's like a scapegoat route for the development of the trotting center to go through. It's just not fair to the rest of the property owners who oppose and have majority of the land that in this restriction should be allowed. It's just not fair. I oppose.
Thank you, sir.
Katie Reinholz.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Katie Reinholz. I'm the state representative for FNGLA. I'm also a grower myself in rural Jupiter. I am very pro-agriculture, I am very pro-wildlife, and I am very pro-low density. I oppose the overlay as it is currently written, defined. I agree with those that say there needs to be a little more time for consideration. With that being said, on October the 12th, I attended a small forum discussion hosted by Palm Beach County Planning Zoning Building located in the Vista Center regarding the details of this overlay. During the presentation, county staff shared multiple slides. In one slide, staff introduced a controversial piece. This slide showed a change that violates statute. The changes indicated showed bona fide equestrian as P. P was defined by staff as permitted use under the terms of the overlay. In this same slide, it showed bona fide nurserymen, horticulture, as A. A was defined at that time as requiring county approval, also known as DRO approval. That violates statute. I did mention the discrepancy at that time, and it flustered staff. The staff members that were flustered assured me that they were in the process of creating new slides, even though those were the ones being presented as, you know, what was happening. And they assured me that the new slides would reflect the right to farm law. To date, I have never seen those slides. Palm Beach County is not allowed to circumvent state law, and contrary to some people that have stood up here, there are people that are being told that they cannot farm on their land. You know, protections are for all ag producers, so there seems to be a divide between equestrian and estate, you know, properties, which are lovely. We are surrounded by many of them in Jupiter, and we all get along. In this particular community, you know, there seems to be a divide that was shown on those slides. There's no divide in ag law, so we're all one. Ag producers are ag producers. On January 13th, I attended the Palm Beach County Planning Commission meeting and observed staff as they presented. These slides were, you know, conveniently left out of that presentation. I was there to see the new slides. I spoke to a planning commission member after that meeting who is very pro-ag, very pro-nursery, has a long-standing nursery lineage, and she had no idea that these types of changes were part of the overlay. So there's a lot being left out, a lot of gray and misinformation, and I kindly ask the commission just to take a closer look,
Thank
a little
you.
more time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have 5 more cards, but they are all non-speaking. 3 are for the overlay and 2 are opposed.
All right. Well, that comes back to us. I want to thank everybody from the public who has participated, and bringing it on back. Somebody, okay, Commissioner Marino, and then Commissioner Woodward.
Question, on that slide that you have up where it says by acreage owned, where it says 60 opposed, if you, and we're talking about acreage, I mean, if you live in a condo association, no matter the size of your condo, you have 1 vote. But of those that are opposed right there, if you take out the Yee parcel and the parcel next to it, I believe that was the parcel owned by Carolyn McKay, how does that change that support? Because it appears they are the 2 largest landowners and they oppose, but it's not that they oppose, they want themselves really excluded. Did I ask that?
We'll try to do that calculation real quick and
Okay.
get back to you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Woodward, you recognize.
Yes, thank you. I did ask staff for just an understanding on the average acreage of the property owners in support and against, and I think you were able to get that calculation.
Yes, so for those that support, they own an average of 5.3 acres. Of those that oppose, they own an average of 14 acres.
I asked this early in the process before many of you spoke, and I just wanted I was trying to keep tabs on the for and against, and I had, as far as I could count, people who actually have property in here. We had 12 oppose and 10 support. Is there a way for us to verify that? It would be on the cards. Either way, my concern with this, we like consensus. I like consensus, and it seems like maybe there's some confusion from both sides, and maybe there could be more discussion, because I heard a lot of similar, they say this, and then the other side, they say that, and I'm just concerned that there's not been clarity given to the citizens as far as us voting on this. We don't have very good consensus. Is there anything we can do to help facilitate? I mean, can we do a postponement? I mean, is there any suggestion? I'd like to hear from other members on how we could better get consensus in this neighborhood.
I did, yeah, okay. So with that calculation, following up with Commissioner Marino, so that would be approximately 96 acres that would be removed from the opposed total acreage, which that would modify the percentages based on acreage to 51.8% support to 48.3% opposed, so.
Just to answer Commissioner Baxter or Commissioner Woodward's question, so options would be to continue. Could you continue the case?
I don't see enough
Talking to the
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is a county-initiated amendment, so we could postpone it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's your answer. All right, Commissioner Baxter, you recognize.
I definitely think there needs to be a lot more consensus. We only have, if you noticed, roughly 50% response rates. So almost 50% of the entire area hasn't even responded one way or the other. And of the people who have responded, it's still split. I just can't imagine restricting based on those numbers.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor, you're recognized. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I think should be Commissioner Barnett, then Vice Mayor.
I think the Vice Mayor was first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Made my life easier.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Barnett. I have a question for staff. This seems to be pretty much conflicted between those who want and those who don't. Do we have any numbers as to whether the county has given an opportunity for everyone to have, to give their opinion of this overlay before we're sitting here today? That is, did we reach out to all the residents? I know I've been to Heritage Farms, and it's spread out. It's not like a little condominium here. But did we send a letter or give an opportunity for everyone in this area to speak their opinion?
Yes, so we definitely did. So up on the screen is our mailing boundary. So we were kind of overly cautious with who we notified for this particular overlay. So
Why were you particularly cautious about who we notified?
So we didn't know what the proposed boundaries would be. So we went ahead and notified anyone who we thought could be included in the boundaries when we started the process. Because
So you were liberally cautious.
Yes.
That's important. So you just gave it to just about anybody, even though you weren't sure they would be affected by the overlay.
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's good.
And so we sent out multiple notices. So when the process first started, we let the community know, hey, this was initiated by the board. We plan on doing some informational meetings. And then, so we had that notice. We had 3 different informational meetings. Once the policy language was proposed, we sent out an additional notice with a comment form, which you've seen in the backup some responses, as well as the proposed language. So we've had some pretty extensive public notification. And as Travis mentioned in his presentation, we also had created a website. So all of the information regarding the language, the dates and times of meetings, agendas, everything is posted on that website.
On the website, okay. Is Mr. Yee still here, or did he leave? There he is, okay. Wonder if I could ask you a question, because I know your property is located in an area that would be affected by the overlay. And you've been generational family farmer many, many years in the county. Could you just summarize again, what is your opinion as to what we should do with this area that would directly affect your family farm?
Well, first, my opinion on land rights is that I don't think it should be trumped by government intervention. That's the first thing. As I said, we've farmed this for 39 years now. This was well before the rural tier was ever even thought of. Well before speculation, well before any of it. So I believe that we should be given every opportunity as the trotting center, and really every opportunity as our surrounding area with LR2 and LR3. It behooves me that there are individuals that like their LR2 and LR3, but want me to pay the expense of having their lifestyle, to have the open space, and I'm going to carry that burden because I own the land, and I don't think that's right. And I don't think that's right for any individual that lives within Heritage Farms. If they want the right to become more fortunate, to expand their operation, to become a larger business, to better their family, they should have that opportunity. And it should not be at the expense of, it shouldn't be at our expense.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Yee. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnett, then Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you to everyone who came from the public to address us on this today. My question is for staff or possibly any member of the Planning Commission. With regards to the public hearing that was held on January 13th, the overlay was approved 9-0, but I see that there was a substitute motion to approve the overlay, however, excluding the Yee and Cypress Prola properties. I don't see much explanation here as to the reasoning behind why that substitution failed. I was wondering if staff or possibly maybe Barbara Roth or any other member of the Planning Commission might be able to clarify or explain on that. Thank you. And also, I was also curious as to why the cemetery was included in the overlay.
Okay. Commissioner Barnett, yes. So at the Planning Commission, the ultimate vote, the 9-0, was to transmit with the boundary, including E. There was a substitute motion made to exclude that property. That failed in a close 5-4 vote, I believe. But don't recall a significant amount of discussion on that vote. But I think it was just the philosophical difference of, so the Trotting Center application, that one, which is not included in this, had an application submitted prior to the initiation of the rural enclave overlay. So they had a overlay in process, so that was excluded. This property did not, but I think there was just that disagreement among the planning commissioners of, well, should we or should we not include it? But there wasn't that much discussion at the commission hearing.
The cemetery, why the cemetery was included.
Come up.
I don't know that there was any discussion about excluding the cemetery in the Planning Commission. Oh.
No, I was just wondering, for my own elucidation as to why the cemetery was included in the proposed overlay.
It's very simple. It's federally owned and they're precluded from our regulations. So it was one of those, there's sort of a historical plat, if you will, that was in it, that was there, but the regulations for the overlay would not apply to it because it's federally exempted.
All right, Commissioner Bernard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question for Mr. Yee.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you stated that, like government should stay out. Is that what you?
I think that as long as we've owned this property, when something is allowed to a neighbor to a mirror image property, that we should be allowed the same rights. And that government intervention that differs than what was initially proposed and also transmitted by this board. Anything different than that, I think, would be considered favoritism.
Yeah, but government intervention is what allowed the Trotting Center to move forward. Is that correct?
Well, I don't think, well, government intervention, I guess, in this situation of a supermajority or 5-7 would also prevent others from moving forward.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll make a statement because, I came here with probably with the intention of supporting this overlay. And, I thought that this was, when we did the Pioneer overlay, we had overwhelming support from the residents to support the overlay. And this needs a little bit more work. And we have a new district commissioner that represents that area. And I don't think that they've had the chance to meet with the district commissioner. So, I would say that we should postpone this item.
Is that your motion?
My motion would be for us to postpone this item to allow more conversation and more work with the district commissioner and for it to be brought to us.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Bernard, a second by the Vice Mayor to postpone this item for further work. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the sentiment of bringing this back, but I would like to, I guess, ask staff if it does come back to us, is it going to have, or would they potentially, because we have another item later today, then redraw those lines themselves?
So if you provided direction today, we would come back with any modifications that you would want to see.
I think she was asking if we have another item regarding another overlay, if that were to move forward, would you redraw the lines based on what we do with that other item?
I think that would be a board direction, if that's what you all would like to see.
Okay.
So when I'm looking at this map, I would say most of the red falls below the Heritage Farms Road, or south of, I should say, the Heritage Farms Road. So if we're going to look at anything in the future, I would like to see that be the boundary so that we are trying to appease the most amount of people. But I do second the motion to postpone.
So it's already been seconded?
Second, yep.
It was already seconded, so
Oh,
you're
so, okay,
thirding it.
third then.
Thank you. All right.
On this motion to postpone, would we want to come back in May, or are we looking at a later date?
Do you need a date certain on this?
I don't think we need a date certain on this. I'm looking to staff.
I think just to establish expectations, you might want to, if the board, I would recommend we consider it beyond May. There's a lot of stuff that's going on right now. If we could, our next hearing would be in the summer?
I
July?
think August 30th is
August, if
the
we could
next one.
anticipate coming back at that point.
I would say, I mean, I think it's going to be dependent on, and let me just add my comments now. I share the concern of my colleagues. As the commissioner representing the Pioneer Road community and our ability to have an overlay there, and the board support of that, I certainly appreciate. But they did, and Commissioner Bernard was correct in identifying there was much more consensus in that community. I think if you look at this, the fact that we had so many folks that didn't respond, that's the concerning thing to me, that even if we had transmitted today, I was going to ask that we continue to work and try and get more involvement from the rest of the neighborhood, because based on what the numbers that I had earlier in here, we had about, if you look at the total number of property owners, there are 95, 27% or 27 of them had identified as supporting, 15 identified as opposing. But that's, when you look in the grand scheme of things, that's 28% supporting and 16% opposing, and the rest, we don't know where they stand on it. And I think it's really important when we talk about something like this that we look for a broader consensus. So those are my thoughts on it. So I will be supporting the motion to postpone today. As to the timing of the return of it, I would think that it's going to depend on ability to get to the other homeowners and figure out where they stand on this, so we can get I think the board really wants to get a better consensus from the community. So
Could we go
Mr. Attorney, is that
longer
clear enough?
Is it possible to go longer than May?
Yeah, sure, it's possible to go longer than May, but I'm just examining the rules here for BCC meetings, and for a motion to postpone, if a member would like to defer consideration of a matter, a motion to postpone is in order, which may include a time and date to continue the discussion. When postponing an advertised public hearing, a time and date certain must be included in the motion. So
I would like to postpone it to do we have an August?
August 30th.
So can we do it for the August 30th planning meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion has been amended to specify the August 30th planning meeting. All right. I see no other lights. All right, all in favor, all opposed. This motion carries 7-0. This matter is postponed till August 30th. And staff's been given, you're clear on our direction. Thank you. All right, thank you for everybody for participating this morning, and let's see where we're at. We're at
Mr. Mayor?
11:10.
Mr. Jason Pierre-Paul, he's won 2 Super Bowls, so let's make sure we clarify that.
He'll be out in the atrium if you want to get your picture taken. Thank you, sir.
That was good, that was good.
Okay, so here's where we're at right now. So we're moving on. This is to the 60th Street Tim Amendment. That's 4A3. So here's what I'd like us to do with the board, if the board would agree with me. So let's move forward. We have, how many cards do we have? We have 20 cards on the North Lake. Do we have any other cards? No other items do we have to speak with? Oh, so we have a number of cards for speakers. So what we're going to do, because at some point we're going to need to take a break for lunch, like to have an hour for lunch for folks. So we're going to continue to move through these, but the expectation somewhere around noon, between noon and 12:30. Hopefully we can find an appropriate stopping point for lunch. Okay.
All right, and this next item will be presented in 2 parts by Khurshid Mahayadin with the Planning Division, as well as our County Engineer, David Ricks.
Good morning, Khurshid Mahayadin with Planning Division. The amendment in front of you today is 60th Street North TIM Amendment. TIM is also a short for Thoroughfare Right-of-Way Identification Map. It will change the current 80-foot designated on the TIM for 60th Street North from 140th Avenue North to North State Road extension to 100 feet to allow for ultimate 8 lanes. What is Thoroughfare Right-of-Way Identification Map? It is adopted as part of the comprehensive plan map series, and it is basis for identifying right-of-ways both current and future. It's a long-range planning tool. It identifies the network for roadways required to meet existing and future traffic demands. It depicts roadways maintained by state, county, and some important city roads. This is our Thoroughfare Right-of-Way Identification Map. County and state has approximately equally 2,200 lane miles of this thoroughfare map. And the county's economic prosperity depends upon these major roadways. With this, I will hand over to David Ricks, County Engineer, and then I'll come back.
Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the board. I'm David Ricks, County Engineer. I'd like to continue the presentation. This is a section of the thoroughfare map. Indicates in green the sections that we do have, basically, they're right away for 100-foot right-of-way easement. And we would like to, this presentation, to look at expanding that connection from 80 feet, from 140th to State Road 7, from 80 feet to 100 feet. The portion of this potential right-of-way TIM amendment, talking about 3 miles along this corridor. The key thing about this corridor, this is a potential east-west major corridor. There are properties along this corridor from 140th to basically 120th. There's about 45 parcels that may be impacted with the potential additional 20 feet. From the 20 feet, 125th Avenue going eastward to State Road 7 extension, that is an existing Indian Trails drainage, so it won't affect any residential properties. So we're talking about, again, about 3 miles along this corridor. Good. Next is just, I'm just going to show you images along this crested corridor. This section shows 140th to 130th Avenue. In line, showing on the map, red is the existing 80-foot right-of-way amendment, and then orange is the extra 20 feet along this corridor. along this. So it's 140th to 130th Avenue, and just shows you the properties that are being affected by this potential timber amendment. Next slide. Next is still on 60th, 130th Avenue, 120th Avenue, and you can see along there on the bottom portion of that slide in yellow is the existing Indian Trails easement, and our requested 20 feet will be within the Indian Trails drainage easement. Next slide. Continuing on, and this is 125th Avenue to State Road Extension along that corridor in terms of what we're looking at in terms of configuration. As you can see, just like the previous slides, you see the canal, which is the M Canal. And the reason why we need the extra 20 feet is that we need to provide the proper buffer for the canal. Normally in 80 feet, you can actually get a potential 5-lane configuration, but with the M Canal challenge there, we need an extra 20 feet just so to ensure a 5-lane configuration. Next slide.
We notified, we did an extensive outreach on this item, notified all the surrounding municipalities and special districts and the properties which are abutting right on this roadway. At Planning Commission hearing, 3 members of the public spoke in opposition. Staff assessment is that since a typical 5-lane needs 80 foot, but however, in this case, M Canal facilities encroach on the north side, where City of West Palm Beach has access and maintenance easement. Therefore, this amendment is necessary to construct the road. Staff recommends approval. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval, and we are requesting a motion to transmit.
Staff have anything further on this?
With this,
No, Vice Mayor.
Sir.
no, we conclude, and we are ready to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Does any commissioners have any questions for staff at this point? All right, we're going to go on to public comment. Commissioner Marino, go right ahead.
Thank you. We have 2 cards, Hector Cifuentes and Drew Martin. Hector, are you still here?
No traslada, no
habla
English.
Inglés?
No, I speak English. Sorry.
We have a, Mr. Redder, do we have a translator here?
Anyone in the audience fluent in Spanish?
Spanish.
Sir, if you just wait a few minutes, we'll try to get somebody here to.
John,
help
can you get
translate.
Steve down here, please?
Okay? Translator. Un moment.
Drew Martin?
You bringing somebody down? Yeah. Okay. It's all yours.
I believe Mr. Cifuentes was at the planning meeting also, wasn't he? Correct. Because I remember watching. Is there a synopsis of what Mr. Cifuentes, and let me know if I'm out of order for asking this. Can you reiterate his comments from the planning meeting? That might actually help the process.
Sure, yeah. So he owns the property where the roadway begins to bend, and he was concerned that this proposed extension may make his property uninhabitable, if you will. There may be issues with the roadway alignment and his existing home and business.
And was it relayed to him that if there was any taking of his land, that he would be compensated?
Yes, I believe Mo at the hearing explained that.
Can you come down? We need somebody.
All right, we're trying to find a translator, so.
We have.
Nope, we have one coming down.
We're in the.
Drew Martin, you had a card in for this topic?
I did. Thanks. I did. She's coming down.
This is for 60th Street.
Right, right. My only comment was just that I understand that one of the property owners was going to lose a significant amount of his property on this, so that was my concern. Thank you.
Whoever gets here first.
That's exactly.
All right. All right. We'll go ahead and
That's it for cards.
okay, that's it for cards. So we'll wait. We've made a couple of folks ask for help.
Make sure he identifies himself as a translator and where he's from.
Can you identify yourself as the translator?
Hi, I'm Stephen Avila.
Yo quiero pedirles más
I
información
want to ask him for more information
porque yo no puedo aprobar o desaprobar algo que no entiendo.
because I can't approve or disapprove of something I don't know.
Unos dicen que mi casa va a ser destruida totalmente
Some say that my house will be destroyed totally.
y yo tengo muchos animales. Le metí a mi casa 600,000 de reforma
And
y
I
en
have
este
many
momento la vamos a
animals.
destruir.
And I put into my house $600,000. ¿Y qué?
Y en este momento me dicen que la van a destruir.
And at this time, they're telling me that they're going to destroy it. ¿Algo más?
¿Qué solución voy a tener?
What solution
Más
can I
información
have?
en mi idioma.
More information in my language.
Can you ask him what his address is?
¿Cuál es su, dónde es que vive usted?
13882
13822
60 Street North.
60th Street North.
I'm sorry, 13882 60th Street
Esa,
North.
esa que está en
Correct?
Sí, that one, what's in red right there.
Okay. Can you explain how much, what you're planning to do with his property?
¿Puede explicarle lo que vamos a hacer?
¿Cómo?
I was just translating what you said.
Mayor, members of the board, this is basically only a permission to take a look at potential alignment. If the board elects to approve this, and further on, there'll be another opportunity if we want to do actual full construction. If the board approves a potential construction project, we'll do a full design, look all the environmental impacts, and whatever the impact is to that gentleman there, we would sit down with him and take a look at what the impact is. From a potential impact, all that is done through eminent domain process. They're fully compensated in terms of the legal fees and also the value of the property. So this is early in the process. Definitely, he's going to potentially be affected. We're not sure the details yet, but the board approves this potential alignment. There'll be another step in the process when the board approves a potential project to actually do the actual configuration of a 5-lane. And then we would do a full study and get with the residents who are fully being impacted, because we'll actually have the details in terms of how that road is going to be aligned.
Okay.
Were you
Thank
able
you.
to translate? Excuse me, were you able to translate that for him?
Yes, I did.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. Gracias.
All right. All right, Vice Mayor and then Commissioner Woodward.
You know, Mayor, this is something that maybe we should consider later as a board, and that is, do we have staff that have proficiency in languages that are usually spoken in the areas that we deal with? I mean, most of it is Spanish, could be Haitian Creole, though. Do we have accessibility? I wonder, Mayor, if I could ask staff that question?
Mr. Rudder, can you please respond?
We do have those capabilities. The timing of this one made it a little more difficult. We do have the capabilities, and when those situations present themselves or address them, thank you to a number of folks for jumping to try and help create this. We do have that, and we will plan better.
Because I could imagine that when we are widening roads or doing any county government actions, that we should be able to communicate. Otherwise, we're going to miss out on, and folks are going to miss out on their county government. So I'm glad, Mr. Rudder, that whatever area, geographic area we are, if we don't have staff, then we need to remediate that and have, there are court translators that translate in court, and we can certainly use that. So this was a good indication today. It was a good concept. Thank you, Mr. Rudder. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Woodward, you still?
Similar question. It was just also, do we have the ability, or are we able to put this in writing into Spanish or Creole if requested, so that they actually receive it and can examine it closer?
We absolutely can. And just to take one minor step back, dissemination of information, working behind the scenes, not just at a public hearing here, but working at staff levels and all that, those sort of translations, that information is shared in a multitude of languages when it's necessary. Presents a little bit different when we get to a hearing and we're reacting quickly. Specifically to your point, we will get that to them in Spanish.
All right, Commissioner Baxter, then Commissioner Marino.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to thank staff for the work you guys have put into this. It has been phenomenal. We have needed an east-west corridor like this in our area for at least a decade, if not more. The closest through streets that we have are very far apart, and this is just essential to what is there. And now we have this. It wasn't shown on the map today, but it was actually going to run along the northwest lake of Westlake, and all of those residents also are just dying for another east-west corridor to get to where they need to go. So I really just appreciate the support and your ability to help with this. And I do also look forward to working with the residents that feel they will be impacted and coming to a solution going forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. This is for engineering. I do know that in the north end of the county, where we're trying to extend Congress, we have been in this situation where we have done homes where we've done partial takings and full takings. Can you elaborate on that and how the process works?
Well, the ones that the county took over, we actually went through a process and did an appraisal, and then they can either go with the appraisal or they can go through a legal process in the domain, and we will pay for their attorney fees, and the court will come up to a reasonable accommodation to what is best interest for the taxpayers. So it's a full open process. Initially, we try to meet with the homeowner and the real estate agent to come to a mutual understanding. If that doesn't work, then there's another opportunity for the homeowner to get another look at the potential opportunity to get compensated. And so that's fully open, and then depending upon the value of that compensation, it comes before the board before a final decision.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Any further? Commissioner Baxter.
I was just going to put the motion to approve.
Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Baxter to approve the transmittal. We have a second from Commissioner Woodward. Before I call the question, I just want to be clear that this is the transmittal. This is a first step. This is not final at this point. And so for Mr. Cifuentes, just be aware that there'll be multiple hearings going forward on this, and make sure that you're getting your information in Spanish so that you can understand what's happening. Okay, with that, are there any further comments? Don't see any. All in favor? All opposed? That motion carries 6-0 with Commissioner Bernard off the dais. Okay. All right, moving on. We are now on to item number 4A4. This is the North Lake West Thoroughfare right-of-way identification map amendment. Tim, amendment.
For the record, Kashid Mahyuddin again with the Planning Division. This amendment will modify right-of-way for North Lake from 120 to 142 feet to allow ultimate 8 lanes from western edge of Palm Beach Gardens Golf Course to the North State Road 7 extension. Again, it's a future planning tool. It identifies, the map identifies the network for roadways which are required for existing and future traffic demands. A little bit history on this segment. It was originally 120 feet in 1989. In 1992, it was increased partly to 180 and partly to 240 feet to accommodate drainage. In 1999, the subject segment was reduced to 120 feet to allow for ultimate 6 lanes at that time, which was the projected. However, since then, several major projects in the area has been approved, and I would let county engineer talk about some of those.
Thank you, Kashid. Dave Briggs, County Engineer again. This is a map that shows some of the major developments that have been approved in the recent years. Going from the left to right, you get Indian Tail Groves, adopted 2016, zone 2019. You almost have 4,000 units residential, about almost 800,000 commercial non-residential units there. Then you've got a city of Westlake, adopted the zone 2014. And looking at number of units, 4,500 units, almost 2 million square feet of non-residential for that area. And then to the right of the screen there is Avenir. That was adopted 2016. You about 3,200 residential units and about 2,500 units of non-residential. And so the key thing is that from a traffic study standpoint, looking at the traffic studies for these developments, looked at basically a 8-laning potential configuration. Ooh, wait, I'll control this. Looking at the traffic, looking at 2019 count, the AM PM numbers you can see on the screen there is about 2,600 to 2,400. And then you look at, in terms of the road network, our infrastructure, a 4-lane configuration, which is most of it is right now, is about 1,900 capacity. And then if you go a potential 8-lane configuration, 3,500. Looking at the traffic studies based upon the assumption that the build-out is about 2035, you're looking at potential peaks at 4,700 in the AM and the PM 4,400. And then if you don't do any infrastructure upgrades, a 4-lane configuration will definitely be at capacity at 1,900. And then if you look at potential 8-lane capacity, 3,500. So this is a graph going in terms of what the ultimate build-out potential, in terms of the infrastructure potential needs are. If you go from left to right, you go looking at a 4-lane configuration from Hall Road, and then from Seminole Pratt to Hall Road, then a 6-lane configuration from Hall Road to Coconut, then a potential 8-lane configuration. That's what's for this purpose of discussion today, from Coconut to State Road 7, and then a 6-lane configuration that's going from State Road 7 to actually Jog Road, and then a potential 8-lane configuration, Jog Road to Military Trail. That last segment, 8 lanes to North Lake, that was discussed by the board last year, and the board elected not to pursue that as potential TIM amendment. But going back to the 8-lane configuration, that's between Coconut, State Road 7, that's about 2.5 miles. Of that 2.5, a mile and a half is really for the purpose of today's discussion in terms of what we need for a right-of-way amendment. And so the Avenir has been in discussion in terms of what's been approved by the City of Palm Beach Gardens, which you have before you. There's a copy and highlighted in the resolution in 2016 in yellow in terms of what they're supposed to do for basically North Lake. And you can see in yellow, they're supposed to provide east and then westbound 4 lanes in each way. And so it indicates that there is a need potentially, if the build-out occurs, about an 8-lane configuration. There you go. So looking
Excuse
at
me,
infrastructure.
sir, when you say who,
What's that?
who are you referring to?
In terms of,
When you were talking about Palm Beach Garden on the resolution?
right, this was a Palm Beach Gardens resolution.
And who's referenced in there as providing, when you said they're providing 8 lanes or 10 lanes or whatever?
No, in the resolution, you see in yellow, the 8-lane configuration is part of the resolution.
So that would be the City of Palm Beach Gardens?
It'd be the actual Avenue Development to make sure that they provide part of their right-of-way, 8 lanes, so we can do an 8-lane potential configuration in the future.
And this was a resolution for?
For the development of Avenir,
So this was a resolution
to approve the master plan development for Avenir.
that Avenir provide?
That is correct.
Okay, so that was them ordering Avenir to provide that?
That is correct.
Okay.
But that's based upon the traffic studies in terms of that, in terms of what is needed for long-term projections. But looking at the infrastructure, currently we have basically a 2-lane or 4-lane configuration. We have several projects underway, from east of Seminole Pratt Rittney, east of Hall Road, going 2-lane to 4-lane. And then from that point, east of Hall Road to Coconut, we're going from 2-lane to 6-lane. Both constructions are done by the county, and they're going to be, these construction bids will be open 2023. So you project potentially 2025, 2026, that'll be done in terms of that segment. And then you got another segment from Coconut to what's the State Road 7. That is under construction by Avenir. That's going to be a 6-lane configuration. So the bottom line, by 2025 or early 2026, you will have a 6-lane configuration, 4-lane to 6-lane configuration up to State Road 7. And as indicated in terms of previous comments, especially the Planning Commission, there are some challenges in terms of going a potential 6-lane to 8-lane on that one segment in terms of utilities, right away in terms of looking at some of the key properties there. That will be determined basically if the board proceeds with a potential project. You're talking 5 to 10 years in the future. All of this presentation is basically looking at a potential discussion of reserving the right-of-way. But the actual challenges in terms of environmental issues, in terms of right-of-way, in terms of utilities, that'll be done if the board approves a potential project, if the traffic projections really merit a conversation at that point. We do traffic projections every year, and as we get closer to a potential project, we'll inform the board as part of our annual 5-year road program that we need to consider a potential project, and the board can say yes or no if they want to consider that. And I'll turn this back over to
So
Rashid.
again, on this item, we did extensive public outreach and notified all the cities surrounding and also the special districts and the properties abutting the road as well as HOAs in the area. At the Planning Commission, several HOA representatives spoke against, and also representative of City of Palm Beach Gardens, including Mayor Chelsea Reed, spoke against this project. City of West Palm Beach representatives also spoke against this project. Both cities, West Palm Beach and City of Palm Beach Gardens, has also objected to IPARC process, Intergovernmental Plan Amendment Review Committee process, and so we are going through that also. Our assessment is that North Lake is a major east-west route that connects the central western communities with eastern part of the county and provides access to 3 major SIS. SIS stands for Strategic Intermodal System Facilities. Those are the important state roads. It connects to Beeline Turnpike and I-95. And the traffic reports for recently approved major projects in the area indicate that widening of North Lake Boulevard to 8 lanes will be necessary to accommodate the projected future traffic demand. Staff is therefore recommending approval. Planning Commission recommended approval 8-1 vote, and we are requesting a motion to transmit. And we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. All right, is there questions for staff at this time? Okay, Commissioner Marino is reserving till after. All right, I guess we'll move on to public comment. And
We have, right now, count of 21 cards, publics who want to speak, and I have 24 that do not want to speak, and all 24 are opposed. And all I know is my office has received hundreds, and I'm not joking when I say that, letters not in support of this. So I will call up the folks. You can come to each of the lecterns. Barbara Seidman, Frederick Heller, Gary Alexander, Patricia Piloto. Those are the first 4 I have.
Good morning, everybody. I live in Ibis, and I have
Sorry,
lived-
could you state your name and address
Oh,
for
I'm
the
sorry,
record?
Barbara Seidemann.
Thank you.
I live in Ibis, and I've lived there since 1998, and have seen only much more congestion on North Lake. Life is very fragile, and already we have had so many accidents with only 2 lanes one way and 2 lanes the other way, 2 lanes east, 2 lanes west, that to put more traffic on that street, you are going to really challenge the people to be able to be safe when they go out and safe when they come in. And I believe that safety should be the main concern here, and I didn't hear that.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Gary Alexander. I'm a 20-year resident of the North Lake Corridor, first at PGA, now at IBIS. I'm a local attorney. I'm representing myself here today and my wife as a resident and very familiar with North Lake. I want to say that I was going to yield my time to Jason Pierre-Paul as a Ravens fan, but I did get a selfie with him. I'm from Maryland. So I don't want to take up my whole 3 minutes. You have a lot of other folks that are going to come and testify. I think I would say, as a former elected official up north in Maryland, welcome to the new commissioners. You're now observing democracy in action as to what you've asked for. And with the single member configuration of the commission, I know it's hard for some of you in other districts to be familiar to the same extent as the commissioners who represent that district, and each of you have projects coming before you that your expertise in your own district, is important to convey to the others, and I know you try to do that. I would say to you, this is sort of a no-brainer that we're objecting to, and I would urge those of you from the other districts to come up and drive North Lake. Just drive North Lake at 8 o'clock in the morning, going from going from west to east. And in the rush hour traffic, what is proposed is 6 lanes that we're all in favor of, going down to Grassy Waters, which is 4 lanes. And I don't understand if there's any solution to widening where it is on North Lake for Grassy Waters, but we are going to have the biggest mess going from 4 lanes to 6 lanes and projected to 8 lanes. It's unworkable. So my request is very simple. At least give us the courtesy before you vote to drive it, because we're there every day. You can see a line on a map, you can see a photograph, it's not the same. We know North Lake. We urge you not to approve this. I thank you for your time. Best wishes.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxter, do you have a question for
Staff.
Oh, for staff. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Is what he said correct, that it's only going to be 4 lanes going past Grassy Water in the future? What's
No,
the
our ultimate configuration is that we'll go from, put the map. Here we go. So past State Road 7, the plan is to make that a 6-lane configuration until you get to Jug Road, and that's right now it's a 4-lane. It'll be 4-lane or 6-lane. That'll stay as is. But this is basically our long-term planning tool. Right now, like I said, right now we're doing improvements to go from 4 lanes, Seminole Pratt to east of Hall Road, and then we're in the process of doing a configuration of 6-lane, and then that section before you get to Coconut, part of that's being done by Avenir. And so if nothing changes, we'll have 4 lanes to 6 lane throughout this whole corridor. The question is that based upon the traffic counts, that by 2035, you'll have some challenges in terms of traffic. And so we'll need other areas for people to move. That's the challenge. And so we're going from 8 lane to 6 lane at that configuration, State Road 7, because that 6-lane configuration past State Road 7, there's no intersections, there's no traffic lights, so it has a greater throughput than having an 8-laning. So you don't need to have an 8-laning past State Road 7. But there's definitely several traffic lights along that 8-lane section that we're talking about from Coconut to State Road 7, and that's our challenge going forward. So this is more of a planning exercise. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but by 2035 plus, there'll be some challenges if we don't plan for the future. And that's our challenges that we want to bring to the board for consideration.
follow up, Mayor? What are the current right-of-ways we have on each side of where would potentially be transmitting today or not?
Well, the only area that we need the right-of-way is 1.5 miles along that red area.
I think we're going to have to
There's the total list is about the long length on the eight laning, it's about 2.5 miles. We have enough right-of-way to do an 8 laning there. Only a mile and a half, that's what's up for the board for today's consideration. And so I can have Kathleen, who's my right-of-way manager, talk about the existing right-of-way.
That's okay. I'm just curious. It
On the-
looks like on our paperwork, it said 240 feet on one side and 180 on the other side.
That is correct.
And we're asking to go from 120 to 142 in that middle section?
That is correct.
Is that what I'm understanding? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Thank you. For clarification for those that are in the audience, because every card I have in front of me is in opposition of 8 lanes. And I think what has happened, and I realize this might not be the time, but I think it'll help when people come up to talk. I know that everybody is in favor of a straight 6 laning from the Beeline Highway to where you start the 4 lanes on the map. A straight 6 laning, as long as there are dedicated right turn lanes into the developments and then out lanes. So what the folks in the audience are opposed to would be 8 lanes plus an additional right turn lane and left turn lane. So just going forward, every card I have here is opposed to 8 laning. They're not opposed to 6 through lanes. And when we say 8 lanes, we mean 8 through lanes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I hope that helps to clarify a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, we'll continue.
Okay. I have Frederick Heller, Patricia Piloto, Chelsea Reed, Louis, pardon me, Louis, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Nenwelt? You're welcome to come up and speak. That's what, these cards that I just called are the people
that was your
put a card
invitation.
in that said they wanted to speak.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lou Newelt. I live in the Grand community in Ibis. This 8-lane project will directly affect our lives in multiple levels. I've previously submitted an email to each of you commissioners expressing and detailing why this project should be voted no, voted down. Several of you have responded, and for that, I thank you. I will not be repetitive today, but you must understand this proposed North Lake expansion to 8 lanes will become an I-95 environment. This environment is not reasonable, not acceptable, not prudent, and most importantly, not safe for the community that it will run through. As a prime example, just this past Thursday morning at approximately 7:30 a.m., there was yet another fatal accident requiring a trauma helicopter to land near or on North Lake at Bay Hill, creating havoc with traffic, causing the closure of closing traffic to both east and westbound lanes, starting at the main gate to Ibis until around 1 p.m. that same afternoon. I urge you to hear us and to act accordingly, rejecting the proposed plans. There must be a better way, and most importantly, a safer alternative to this 8-lane fiasco. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Frederick Heller, have you left? Okay, you are opposed? Okay, Patricia Piloto. She's also opposed. Okay. Mayor Chelsea Reed in the House.
Yeah, I just want to welcome Mayor Chelsea Reed from the city of Palm Beach Gardens. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. So, good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and all of our county commissioners, or especially our new commissioners. It's nice to see you. I've had the opportunity to meet most of you. It's nice to meet you again. So I am obviously proud to be the mayor of my hometown, the city of Palm Beach Gardens, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the city of Palm Beach Gardens today. Just for reference, though, I do want to mention that I am the chair of the Transportation Planning Agency, and I'm also the county's chair for the Transportation Disadvantage Board for the county. And I spend a lot of my time working with our residents in this county and in our state about mobility and access to mobility. So I come to you not only with my city in my heart, but also our residents in my heart, and a depth of knowledge about what you're trying to accomplish. So I realize what you're grappling with. This is a roadway that is on your agenda, and as you know, it is already dangerous by design. And planning to move our residents needs to be done together, to collaborate in doing so with the residents, with the governments that go all the way up and down. As you know, there are 5 folks that you have to work with on North Lake, and we are all willing to sit with you. The City of Palm Beach Gardens sent technical correspondence ahead, which I hope you've had the moment to review. What I want you to understand about that correspondence, it's meant to be collaborative. There are solutions in there beyond the 8-laning. So what we would like to do is to continue to collaborate. We don't feel like we've had that opportunity. As county staff continues to move forward without collaboration, our city council objects to this modification to your TIM. We have passed 2 resolutions opposing the modifications that are before you, and we request to meet and plan together with your staff. So I'm asking you today to take the matter off the table so that we can sit together to plan a safer way to move our residents. We're asking for collaborative, solution-based meetings, one of which was actually already scheduled, and I'm sure you know your staff actually canceled the night before. So we were ready to meet, we wanted to sit, we wanted to have discussions to find solutions and not just continue to object. This is a connected region, and not sitting at the table to collaboratively plan for safe roadways is to risk the lives of our residents, as well as to waste their taxpayer money. We must collaborate for their safety, the ability to get to work, to health care, to play, all of it, without risking their lives is a right, and this amendment could make this ability more deadly. The area near Avenir will be widened to 6 lanes, and needed services from employment to restaurants to retail to hospital, a fire station, even a school. All of these developments are planned right across the street from Avenir, or right within Avenir in our commercial development area. Capturing trips. Right across the street from there, the county has 2 other commercial areas also offering services to the western communities as well as to the communities that have been approved out west. So there are so many, I will take my 3 minutes. I could have gone on. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think Vice Mayor Sachs may have a question for you.
Okay,
No,
very good.
we don't applaud in here. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor. I wonder if you could come back up to the podium. Good to see you. You're not only mayor of the city that's affected by this, but you're also very much involved in transportation and safety.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you given to county staff your opinions on the safety of this project that we're looking at today?
Yes, ma'am. You received 3 letters, one from myself, one from our traffic engineer, and also one from our director of planning.
Is that what I have?
You should have that in your
Now,
packet.
My question really goes towards, these are dated, at least the one from West Palm, January 30th, January 23rd. I'd like to know, and this is really for staff, but stay there. Have we had cooperation and collaboration, which I love that word, collaboration, with our traffic folks from the TPA and from other organizations that really fight for safety? I guess that's to you, Mr. Ricks, or to our county staff?
Yeah. I mean, we've had conversations back and forth. The question is in terms of looking at the numbers. And so we got to figure out a way where we can both settle on what the numbers is in terms of future projections. And so that's where we got to agree to disagree. And so what the mayor has indicated, that this needs to be a collaborative conversation going forward. Today is really not to put a shovel in the ground tomorrow. Today is just looking at a planning tool. But eventually you will have to get to a point where you need to have detailed conversations with technical analysis that looked at all the challenges that are going forward in terms of right turns to these major developments. You got utilities, some other things, and also safety, and that's a major priority. But if you look at the potential developments that's already been approved, that's ongoing, Avenir and Westlake, the people are building homes, traffic is coming. And so we've got to work together to defend a workable solution before it becomes a crisis. You are correct.
You work very hard, I know, and we work together on a lot of transportation issues. But I think that this is important, that we use county agencies such as TPA and other agencies in terms of safety. And you know what? If it's not safe, we don't build developments. That's my opinion. All right, so I appreciate it. I appreciate, Mayor, your coming forward. And I always hesitate to build more roads if safety is not the number one indicator. And if we have too many developments that are coming down the pike, well, maybe we better wait a while on those until we get the right infrastructure in place. Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, continuing on.
Sal Faso, followed by Commissioner Joe Peduzzi, Richard Stein, Phil Altman.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I guess, but thank you for allowing me to speak this morning, and congratulations to all the new commissioners who have just taken office. We look forward to your support and your leadership going forward. I'm the president of the North County, I live at 7741 Blue Heron Way in Ibis. I've been there for 25 years. I'm a Floridian. I know the area very well. I became president of the North County Neighborhood Coalition, which I founded 14 years ago. And I'd like to kind of start off with something that the mayor had mentioned. Who are we from an NCNC point of view? We have 23 communities, 55,000 residents, and 35,000 voters. And our voter participation rate is superb. 74% over the last 10 years, people turn out. Why is that? We focus on issues, not on candidates. We focus on the facts. We try to get our residents educated, so when they go to the polls, they make an informed decision. I'm a veteran, and I don't care whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. I just want you to go vote. And that's what we do in our coalition. Let me just state another thing for you that you might find interesting. We have 23 communities. Every one of the communities along North Lake Boulevard opposes this. This is not a question of telling them. This is a question of asking them. And we've got that, and you've got obviously evidence of emails that went to all of you with regards to their positions. And if I ask the audience to stand up who opposes this, can you stand up if you oppose this? I would
Please
appreciate
don't.
it. Okay? Well, I'm sorry, Mayor. The reason why I bring that up is one of the county presentations that was made to us. They said they had a meeting with 20 people that showed up, and only 3 spoke against it. And along that corridor, we've got 15,000 residents that are not necessarily in favor of this. And we have not had one email supporting it. That's astonishing. So we've educated our residents. They do not want it. I'm going to give you some facts. We talked about facts. We focused in on safety and security. How many accidents in a 2-year span of time at the boulevard of Ibis Boulevard and North Lake Boulevard? One intersection. In 2 years, 57 accidents in 2 years, okay? 74 in the year 2022. And regrettably, unfortunately, we had a couple of deaths just occur here in the last month or so, okay? How many speeding citations do you think? These are from the police records of West Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens. I've got them right here, okay? Citations and speeding in 2021 alone, 1,054. They clocked a lot of guys going over 90 miles an hour. So you see a configuration of going from 4 lanes to 6 lanes to 6 lanes to 8 lanes back down to 4 lanes. It's an accident waiting to happen, and we can't afford that. We've got a demographics of residents that were, hey, I tell my daughter I'm a young senior, okay, not an older senior. She says, all those older people living in Florida. I says, by the way, I'm one of them, okay? So we oppose this vehemently. There's infringement upon properties, homes, utility lines, walls, landscaping. Carlton Oaks, they're going to lose their community. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it very much, but we definitely oppose this.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'd like to welcome City Commissioner from West Palm Beach, Joe Peduzzi. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Good morning. Joe Peduzzi, West Palm Beach City Commissioner, and to your colleagues on the dais. I also serve on the TPA with many of you and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I'm the City Commissioner for the western communities of West Palm Beach. This is an area that covers much of the area of North Lake Boulevard that will be affected by your decision here today. The City of West Palm Beach has filed 3 separate letters from our mayor and city attorney strongly opposing the expansion of North Lake Boulevard and outlining our numerous concerns. We request that those letters be made a part of the record, and we ask that you deny this request for this TIM amendment today. Commissioners, there has been no evidence showing that the proposed expansion will not generate devastating impacts to the Grassy Waters Preserve, a pristine remnant of the Florida Everglades right here in the city of West Palm Beach, and the primary source of drinking water for not only the city, but for the towns of Palm Beach and South Palm Beach. The current stormwater management system is insufficient to manage runoff and will only be worsened by the expansion of North Lake Boulevard. Likewise, the proposed design will create more problems with traffic flow than it will solve. The proposal expands the roadway, then contracts the roadway, and then expands the roadway again. The contraction occurs through our preserve up there, and we believe that this will create a bottleneck that will inhibit the traffic flow and will increase congestion along North Lake Boulevard. Unfortunately, it appears that this proposed expansion may be erroneously premised upon the extension of State Road 7, which has faced a myriad of environmental and permitting issues. Since State Road 7 extension projects has been shelved at this point by the FDOT for at least 5 years, the expansion of North Lake Boulevard is simply not necessary and is not a reasonable use of public funds. The city of West Palm Beach believes that there are adequate alternative routes that should have been analyzed in conjunction with the TIM amendment. In addition to the adverse environmental impacts, the proposed expansion of North Lake Boulevard will adversely impact the residents and businesses of the area. They may include the unnecessary taking of their property, as well as safety concerns. In summary, the City of West Palm Beach would ask that you deny the request for this TIM amendment, and that none of the issues raised by me or our mayor or our city attorney have been addressed prior to bringing this TIM amendment for your consideration here today. So we ask that you deny the TIM amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I have Richard Stein, Phil Altman, Derek Mims, Nick Moore.
Before you start, I just so I know other people are here for other items, my intention is that we will break after we conclude this item. So if you're here for other items beyond this, we're going to be breaking for an hour for lunch.
Yes, my name is Phil Altman. I live at 8973 Lakes Boulevard. My property backs up to one of the largest lakes at Ibis, and it backs up also to North Lake. Over the past few years, when we first moved in, there was some traffic noise, but since they've started Avenir, the construction vehicles, the motorcycles without mufflers, the trucks without mufflers, I was awoken this morning because of the noise on North Lake. And going from 6 lanes, I'm opposed, 8 lanes is not even on the piece. 6 lanes is going to increase that noise, increase air pollution, increase safety, and then you bottleneck it at Route 7. People down here, I came from New York, and I'm now a Florida resident, thank God, but the traffic, the way people drive, the accidents are going to be tenfold of what they are right now. And what are we going to do about the noise factor? Not just for the residents, for the environment and everything else that goes along. Are you planning on putting up a noise reducing wall? Are you planning on doing some noise reducing type things to protect the environment and the people there? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I guess it's afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Richard Stein, and I'm a resident of Ibis for the past 18 years. I'm also a member of the Board of Directors, and I'm here representing that board in opposition to this plan. What I see this morning on the map is new to me relative to the 6 lanes between State Road 7 and Jog Road, as they say. This is the first we've heard about it. I don't know anything about any environmental studies, as the commissioner said, regarding Grassy Waters and proposed 6 lanes. I speak to the point of taking 8 lanes down to 4 lanes at State Road 7. I don't know how you would accomplish that. And a pertinent question regarding the alignment of North Lake. Nowhere is it stated whether the eminent domain acquisition will be split evenly on both sides of the median and or the center line of the current configuration. I've asked this question of the planning people, and I've not got an answer. This is a very important question because if they move the roadway north, it is on county land, and not taking any land from IBIS. Making an assumption that the right-of-way would be expanded evenly on both sides will adversely affect not only the common property of IBIS, but also very close to the homes as these people live in the Grand, which is our northernmost community next to North Lake. IBIS currently has an eastbound ingress and egress lane at the junction of IBIS and North Lake. Maintaining these lanes would require expanding the right-of-way from 130 feet to 152 feet minimum. Utilities would essentially need to be moved to the edge of our lake just west of IBIS Boulevard. The character of the area does not align with an 8-lane highway. It's not Okeechobee. It's not Southern. It's a quiet residential area. The fact that there's no proposal, as I said, to widen North Lake from State Road 7 to Beeline, it's all news to us. We have heard from the planners they do not need to expand North Lake between this area because it's a thoroughfare with no stops that can handle 1.5 times the amount of traffic that North Lake handles. But the plans do not take into consideration the difficulty of merging from these 8 lanes down to 4 lanes or even 6 lanes. IBIS currently has an eastbound ingress and egress lane at the junction of IBIS and North Lake. Maintaining these lanes would require that expansion to 152 feet. There is no plans for that. In fact, when it goes to 6 lanes, our egress lane will disappear. It's for these and many other safety reasons, environmental concerns of grassy waters, that we are opposed to this amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Derek Mims. I live at 10660 Grand Boulevard. I'm a resident of the sub-association, the Grand, inside of IBIS, and I'm also its HOA president. Mr. Stein eloquently spoke to all the points that I have as well, so I will not repeat them, even though repetition is often necessary for emphasis. I will repeat one component, and that is safety. North Lake is a dangerous and fatal thoroughfare. That deserves some serious consideration. Expanding and encouraging more traffic by expanding lanes will not help safety at all. IBIS, fortunately, has a deceleration lane coming in and an acceleration lane leaving, which would be completely eliminated by an 8-lane expansion. The Grand itself, as a community, would lose much of its landscape and sound buffer, and homes would then find utility lines right outside their back corners on the north side of our property. Our homeowners are very concerned about it. They're very active about it, and all of IBIS is concerned about it as well. So we highly encourage you to not move forward with this project. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. You're recognized.
My name's Nick Moore. I live at 7784 Maywood Crest Drive in Palm Beach Gardens. I am on the North County Neighborhood Coalition as a delegate for the Preserve at Bay Hill Estates, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the directors of our HOA. The Preserve at Bay Hill Estates HOA Board of Directors and the residents are opposed to the county expanding the right-of-way on North Lake between Bay Hill Drive and State Route 7 in order to accommodate a future highway of 8 through lanes. I think you've got the gist of what everybody's saying. All I say is that we urge you to vote against transmitting this any further. It's foolhardy. Thank you.
Thank you,
sir.
Victor Martin, Franklin Prince, Robin Shavitz, and Kevin Volbrecht.
Good afternoon. I'm Victor Martin. I'm the president. I live at 8896 Oldham Way, Palm Beach Gardens. I am the president of the Carlton Oaks community of 142 homes. And as we have already been discussed and pointed out, we oppose the 8 lanes. What it will do for us specifically is it will remove our deceleration lane. It will put lanes right against our wall, and it will cause us to cross. When you come out of our community, you'll have to look at 6 lanes or then 8 lanes before you even get to the median to go east. And this traffic is moving at 60 miles an hour. So when you go home tonight, go down your street at 50 miles an hour. Assume that a car is behind you at 45. You have to stop your car at 40 to turn into your driveway, and you hope he's not honking down your horn. when you get up tomorrow morning, come out of your driveway. Stop and think. You have to look at 6 lanes of traffic just to get to the median. This is what we will face. But I like the words of Zig Ziglar. I can't change your mind, but I can give you new information with which to make a new decision. So I'm really going to go off the charts here. Right now, Uber and Hyundai are operating 4-passenger vehicles, electrical vertical takeoff and landing in Los Angeles, Dallas, and in Melbourne. In this year, the LIMU company will operate between Orlando and Tampa these airlifted vehicles. It will reduce pollution, it will reduce noise, reduce congestion, and will address our thing of mobility and population solutions in this area. If anybody would like information about this more, and this 8-lane is 2035. The Orlando office will be built in 2025. Uber is now operating these now in 2023. These vehicles were introduced last January at Electric Convention. So this is operating now to solve these problems now of moving people. So I do have 42 seconds, but anyway, I just want to even look at express buses on North Lake if you want to come down to ground, or how about an electric train between wherever. But these vehicles are coming. In Korea, they're using them. There's a government commission studying them to widen the suburban and urban and suburban area. They are now being used for cargo, and emergency vehicles in South Korea are now using these airborne to move people from accidents. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, and fellow commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Robin Shavitz, and I live in Ibis. I live in the Woodlands, so I don't live particularly near the entrances that have been discussed today for the Ibis community. However, I, like my fellow Ibis members today, have spoken, and the letters that you have received, we're pretty unified in our concerns because of safety and traffic on this road. I am a permanent resident of Florida now. I moved here from the north. I love it here. I appreciate all the work that you do. It's been a great experience for me to be speaking here to you today, primarily because I wanted to tell you how much I enjoy being here and how I love my lifestyle, as does my husband, who agrees with me amazingly about this proposal today. I oppose it. I hope you will give greater consideration. I, too, appreciate the work of a planning board, and I understand what they might be thinking about with the traffic coming down eastward on North Lake, but I think that the bottlenecks that are created will impose so much in terms of safety hazards for us that I think it's time to go back to the drawing board. The mayor of Palm Beach Gardens and our own commissioner of West Palm Beach, I think, spoke eloquently about collaboration, as you reiterated, Madam Vice Mayor. And I think it's important that we look beyond mere numbers of traffic in making an evaluation for this. So for that, thank you. Best of luck to you all, especially the new commissioners, and enjoy your afternoon.
Hello, my name is Franklin Prince, and I live at 6661 Audubon Wildcat, in the Preserve in Ibis. I've been living there for 18 years. I work downtown. I've been here for 35 years. I drive this road every single morning at 7:45 or 8 o'clock, every single morning. And I come home every night, 6 o'clock, try not to get here too early because of the traffic. This proposal is not safe. It is ridiculously dangerous. When I leave Ibis at the main gate, we have the light. Unfortunately, we have the light so we can go east, all the traffic, all my fellow residents that are here. Some of us, a little bit older or slower, do not make the turn into the access lane because it's a third lane to take us to Publix. The cars that are going east are going so fast, and they try to cut in front of us, that it's not so safe to make that right on red, and some of my fellow residents do not do that. I do that. And it's risky sometimes, because those trucks who are trying to get to Publix are coming so fast and cutting into our lane. That's the safe way out of Ibis. If you're coming out of Ibis on the east side by State Road 7, it's a death trap. There's no time to make that right to go east. Heavens forbid, if you allow 4 lanes to merge into 2 or 3, there's going to be so many accidents. If you look at that 8 into the 6 by State Road 7, it's a death trap. It is not safe. What's going to happen is when they merge into State Road 7, it's going to cause a backlog, and we're not even going to be able to get out the main gate, because those 4 lanes are going to come into 3 or 2, and it's going to jam up, and we're not going to be able to make the right turn on the green light to go east. It is not safe. There are so many cars coming east, we're not going to get to go on the green. And we see this all the time if you take 95 South and you go to Okeechobee to try to go east on Okeechobee, which is my path to get here. Sometimes we cannot make the left to go east on Okeechobee from 95. And it's dangerous. Please do not let this happen. If it's going to be 6 lanes all the way, fine. But be concerned about State Road 7 and North Lake, because you're going to prevent Ibis residents from going east. Heavens forbid if they try to go west on North Lake from the State Road 7, no light. Heavens forbid if they try to go west, which they can't. But it's not safe. Please,
Thank you,
try
sir.
to drive. Try to drive
Thank
it
you,
one
sir.
morning. Thank you so much.
All right.
You're welcome.
Kevin, and then Urban Olansky, followed by Drew Martin, Richard Harris.
Good morning, Commission, Mayor. My name is Kevin Volbrecht. I'm the engineer for the city of West Palm Beach. I would like to, first of all, state, obviously, the city of West Palm Beach is opposed to this TIM amendment, and we ask that you vote against transmitting this further. At this point, I want to echo the comments that were made by many of the others who have already spoken, and particularly those of Commissioner Peduzzi. The concerns that the city of West Palm Beach has communicated to you regarding this particular project have not been addressed adequately. And I would just like to say, first of all, the notion of, we're already going to go forward with putting 6 lanes on part of this roadway. You're already underway with doing that. I'm not sure that we can reverse that, but there should be some sort of a transitional area where it does intersect with the area west or east of State Road 7, where it goes down to 2 lanes. Supporting a 6-lane highway all the way through is probably a good thing traffic-wise, but our concerns are also about the environmental impacts that would create as it goes through that section in front of Grassy Waters, because the stormwater drainage needs to be accommodated such that it does not have to run off into Grassy Waters. And so that really needs to be looked at very, very carefully. And we just can't say, let's just put 6 lanes through there without thinking of the other impacts. So I just want to say it's incumbent on us as public servants, to find solutions to problems that address the concerns as optimally as possible, that do not solve one issue and create other issues that introduce other adverse impacts to the community. Yes, we need to address the traffic concerns, but we also have to account for the quality of life, the impacts to the properties of residents and businesses, and we need to also exercise environmental due diligence when we make decisions about what we want to do. It seems clear that other alternatives to address the traffic impacts have not been fully investigated or considered. Now, the capacity of the section in front of Grassy Waters, yes, it is a thorough. It does have the capacity because it doesn't have the impacts from conflicts, people turning in. There's no intersection, etc. But We did a short synchro analysis on this section there, if you went from 8 lanes to 2 lanes, and it would create, from what we looked at just very preliminarily, it would be somewhere almost a half a mile back up onto North Lake Boulevard in the eastbound direction just in the AM peak hour. So it would be definitely a bigger problem than it currently is. There is development going on in the west. North Lake is a means of going from west to east
Thank you,
and
sir.
east to west. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Alansky, followed by Drew Martin, Richard Harris, and Stephen Logudis.
I'm Richard Harris. I don't see anybody else up here.
Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I live at 10914 Grant Boulevard in Ibis. And there are a couple of things I'd like to point out about this. One has to do, if anybody is thinking about Route 7 ultimately becoming a thoroughfare that will be used, and that is part of the rationale for doing this, I'd like to point out that north of Okeechobee, Route 7 goes from 4 lanes to 2. It ends at the western end of Ibis. The Route 7 continuation is at the eastern end of Ibis. So they don't even connect directly right now. And as has been pointed out, the whole Route 7 widening or continuation has been shelved for 5 years. So going to Route 7, there is no outlet there for anybody getting off. Additionally, you have the environmental impact, and currently, the 8 lanes going into 2, if it's 6 lanes going into 2, or going into 6, that makes sense because it's 6 lanes further down on the other side of Beeline Highway, and that makes sense. And if they continue at 6 lanes, as long as the environment is protected and as long as the turn-in and turn-out lanes are protected. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Drew Martin. I'm here on behalf of the Sierra Club for Palm Beach, Martin, and St. Lucie counties. For those of you who are voting on consensus, I'll be really shocked if anybody votes yes, since you turned the last thing down because they only had 50%. Seems to me you have 100% consensus that nobody likes this idea except staff. So I'll be curious to see how the vote goes on this. I have opposed this 12-lane because it's bad for the environment. It's going to negatively impact grassy waters. It's going to increase light pollution. It's going to harm the endangered species along there. I'm not sure specifically if snail kites are going to be nesting in that specific area, but they will be impacted. It will greatly increase water pollution, and it's going to be dangerous and unsafe. Now, when Avenir, I opposed Avenir. I was one of the few people. I went up to Palm Beach Gardens. However, I have to say I support the mayor of Palm Beach Gardens today in her advocacy against this. Avenir was sold to us as something that was going to reduce traffic. Everybody was going to walk and bike, and they actually suggested people would kayak. And so there wouldn't be any need for any additional roads. So it's a bit of a shock that Avenir is being used as the excuse to build this. Now, we also oppose the extension of State Road 7, and we oppose the damage it would do to grassy waters. This is one of the last, and I do want to say heritage farms along with this are some of the last areas that are really, really beautiful, that have a lot of nature, and that have a lot of open space. And I think the people who live out there deserve to be able to maintain that lifestyle. And I don't think that turning this into I-95 is in any way respecting their investment in their properties out there. So the Sierra Club opposes this. Our attorneys have opposed these various types of extensions. It will also really impact negatively the quality of life when you take developments and then you put giant walls along the development. You remove their buffering. You're going to increase the noise level. So I just think for all these reasons, I hope you will turn down this 12-lane proposal. Thank you very much, and I yield back 24 seconds.
Thank you very much, sir. Much appreciated. Thank you. Oh, Commissioner Marino, you're recognized.
Just some clarification. When we say 8 lanes, we mean 4 lanes on each side. When we say 6 lanes, we mean 3 lanes on each side. And when we say 4 through lanes, we mean 2 lanes on each side. And there is no discussion about 12 lanes or 10 lanes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right.
Thank you. Irv Lansky, 10821 Grand Boulevard. I was planning to reiterate about the safety issue, which is what came to my mind. I spent 46 years as an aerospace engineer, and the #1 goal was always safety. So my mind was always directed. And I would endorse the request that you take the opportunity to ride on North Lake during the rush hour in the morning heading east. Not only do you have the volume of cars, but you're facing the sun. And if you're trying to shift from one lane to another, it becomes a hazardous condition. Going home, you just got the reverse. So both times you're getting affected by the elements in addition to the cars themselves. So take the opportunity to see what this looks like. And that's why you've got 100 cards that indicate that they oppose it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, sir.
Stephen Logodis, and then the last 2 cards are Matt Comula and Natalie Crawley.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Logodis. I'm the general manager of the club at IBIS. I've been there for a little over 15 years. While I don't reside at the club, I have spent most of my adult life at the club. And I scared myself this morning when I calculated that I've made that trip from North Palm Beach to my club 4,000 times in both directions. On behalf of myself and our 500 employees, we are opposed to this addition. I can give you countless times that staff have been in vehicle accidents coming to work. We've had 1 or 2 have been seriously injured and had to miss a significant amount of work. Not to mention our public safety staff have helped a number of extremely, and when I say extremely, loss of limb accidents at our street light by pedestrians coming and going, not related to IBIS, who had car accidents at a light, because imagine this, the dangerous light is a red light. People go faster at a red light than they do at the green light. And I can tell you that that intersection is a death trap. So on behalf of the staff, the only thing we ask is your consideration of our safety. And if you take that into account, I know you'll vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So the last 2 cards, Matthew and Natalie Crawley.
Commissioners, may it please the commission. My name is Matthew Camula. I live at 9678 Osprey Isles Boulevard. I am also proudly serving as the Osprey Isles HOA Association president. I echo my community colleague concerns, all of which are very valid as presented to the commission here this afternoon. My community has been living with the transformation of North Lake Boulevard for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Over the course of the 8 years, we have gone into partnership with the City of Palm Beach Gardens in order to put in a right-hand turn lane for our community of Osprey Isles. So this is rather personal for our community. The county told us that Osprey Isles did not have enough right-hand turn lanes to warrant a right-hand turn lane when Osprey Isles was first developed in 2006 and 2007. Well, I can tell you, and I believe a lot of my colleagues here will also affirm the fact that Osprey Isles has way more than enough right-hand turn lanes to warrant a right-hand turn lane. We cannot allow a proposed expansion to 8 lanes to jeopardize that installation of our right-hand turn lane. Please consider that for Carlton Oaks, for Osprey, and consider this fact, very simply, that the Star of David Cemetery, for those of us that are deceased, even has a right-hand turn lane into their community. But Osprey Isles does not. More importantly, whether it be traffic studies, right-hand turn lanes, and all of the likes, the facts and figures that you're going to consider in making this decision for 8 lanes or not 8 lanes, at whatever point in time. More importantly, please consider the aesthetics, the environment that the community people bought into when buying in Osprey Isles and along the North Lake corridor. We bought into country-like. We did not buy into super highway-like. If you want super highway, Okeechobee and Southern Boulevard will fit the bill. Please pause, think, analyze, and then decide. But Osprey Isles, on the behalf of the community and the Board of Directors, please vote and decide no. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Natalie Crowley. I am the Director of Planning and Zoning for the City of Palm Beach Gardens. I have been the Director for over 14 years, and I was the Director when the Avenir Development Order was approved back in 2016. So I am very familiar with what was approved. I was also very involved in the proportionate share agreement, which was adopted by the County Commissioners, which went together with the Avenir Development Order. So I actually wasn't planning on speaking today. Our mayor spoke and eloquently expressed the city's position and has reiterated the technical documents that we have provided to you all. But as part of the county staff's presentation, it was the Avenir Development Order was referenced, and I just want to really make it very clear that there is no requirement to provide an 8-lane link widening in the development order. There are 2 intersections. One was presented by Mr. Ricks. There's actually another one. It's condition 28A and B, which refers to intersections, but intersections are very different from a link improvement. And in your technical backup that was provided to you all, there's a really nice exhibit that shows that. So it's in your backup. It refers to the intersections, 28A and B, intersection improvements, not a link improvement. There is no developer requirement in the Avenir development order to 8-lane. In Avenir's development order, there was quite an extensive compilation of mitigation measures that really tried to address proactively planning for the future. One of them is the 6-laning, which is occurring as we speak, from 140th to State Road 7 in the developer's first phase. That's key. Second mitigation measure, the Avenir Connector Road from North Lake Boulevard all the way up to the Beeline Highway. That's a huge mitigation measure which will provide and relieve the area. And there's also a really important measure as well to have the developer provide commercial services in the first phase. So these are all things that have to happen in the first phase. So I was involved in Avenir. These mitigation measures were very important in order to evaluate the development's integrity and moving forward. They are approved, they are required, they are on the books. Again, as I expressed, our mayor has outlined all the reasons why our city opposes it. I think you've heard today, a number of compelling reasons for right-of-way impacts, for safety impacts, and we urge you today to deny this comp plan amendment and allow at least the ability to work with your staff on solutions, which have also been outlined in the correspondence that we have sent you. Thank you.
Excuse me, I have a question. With the resolution, does that require the developer to provide the right-of-way?
Yes. In the development order, there is the requirement for the developer to dedicate the right-of-way for the ultimate geometry, which could happen. But then, in those conditions,
that was all.
okay.
That was the only thing I needed.
Yeah. So it's a right-of-way dedication.
Thank you.
But it's not a construction requirement.
No.
Very
I
different.
just wanted to be clear that in that there was the right-of-way dedication. That was my question. Thank you. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized. Okay. All right, I think that's the last of our speakers, and then you said we had a number of cards that did not wish to speak and were all opposed. Well, that's all right, you turned them in. I will make you count them up again.
There were over 40.
Okay, thank you. All right, it's back to us. Commissioner Baxter, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't realize that was actually the last card. So just to clarify, because when I spoke to staff, it was said that when we transmit this, we're not approving construction. We're just transmitting the right-of-way, which was referenced in the resolution that was just mentioned.
Yes, that's correct. There are no specific roadway plans at this point. There would have to be a PD&E process. This is putting that ultimate right-of-way on a map in the comprehensive plan. And I don't know if engineering wants to.
And based on that right-of-way, was Avenir and all of those homes approved?
Ask the question again.
We're looking at the right-of-way and
Right.
what was in the resolution. Was that what they were using in order to get all the entitlements approved north of North Lake? Or we had thousands upon thousands of units that staff referenced in the presentation.
Well, I think the two aspects. One is looking at the traffic projections based upon that development. That translates in terms of what the infrastructure needs. And as you get into the prop share and the details in terms of what is going to be required in order to accommodate that traffic. And so in terms of needing the exact 8 laning, that was not in the prop share. However, based upon the traffic projections, looking at staff input, we said we need to look at this potential configuration if those traffic projections do occur.
A follow-up, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
If I can add, those traffic projections were provided in the in Avenue Development Order and their studies. There were studies at that time, and those were provided to the Palm Beach Gardens City for consideration. For example, their land use study says that they are going from 4,000 trips to 72,000 daily trips. But yes, there is a reduction. Then they reduce it with internalization, with maybe biking, walking, and I'm not sure, maybe kayaking. But however, they reduced it to 52,000. That's in their land use amendment traffic study. That was in front of the city when they approved it. So from 4,000 to 52,000, that's a net of 48,000 daily trips.
And so the follow-up would be, safety-wise, how does that impact the actual usage of the road?
It will need to be obviously widened to accommodate that traffic. Otherwise, people will be congested, and it will become a safety concern at that time.
Because I keep hearing if we go wider, it becomes less safe. And then you guys say we're hearing conflicting things. So why is it less safe if we widen it? Or why is it more safe if we widen it?
Well, there is definitely a trade-off in terms of looking at traffic progression. The issue with safety, you have to look at doing an engineering analysis in terms of what the actual impact of each intersection, also the right-of-way analysis. That has not been done for this conversation. All we're looking at doing is having a conversation, looking at the potential, there's a need, 2035, that if nothing changes, this is going to be the road configuration going forward. Right now, we've got 4-lane to 6-lane under construction. By 2035, it'll be 6-lane most of North Lake. If nothing changes from that point, either traffic will slow down to a crawl, or we need to look at all other alternatives to handle the traffic. And so that's where the conversation from the mayor of Palm Beach Garden talking about, let's have a community conversation. What you have before you here today is just really let's just talk about looking at a planning tool to reserve the right-of-way. An engineering analysis has not been done yet, and that's further into the conversation we'll have with West Palm Beach and Palm Beach Gardens if we want to pursue this potentially. If the number of traffic trips do not happen, then that conversation will stop. But if based upon the developments of Westlake and Avenir keeps going to where we think is going to happen, then by 2030, 2035, there needs to be a decision by the community in terms of what we do with traffic.
And lastly, Mayor, if you don't mind, what I was asking, were the residents of the acreage in Loxahatchee, I mean, that's my district, were they notified? And I was told they were not sent a letter, and I guess maybe that doesn't happen at this stage to hear any opposition, because they are really directly affected by this one way or the other. So I'd like to know at what point would we get their input?
I think through the process, there's a bit in the background there about the notifications and the public meetings that were held, and there were larger groups that were done. Typically, we don't reach out to every single private property owner at this step in the process sort of thing. But just to further on that point, Commissioner, that's part of the reason we're here discussing this TIM amendment, is not looking at it from any one potential entity and their concerns. We have to look at it on a much, much broader scale than just one. Whether it's the residency acreage, Loxahatchee Groves, areas west, it has an impact, and it can be good or bad, on any number of areas. So, directly answering your question, specific notification to every individual property owner, that is not done. But we do reach out as best we can to the larger interest groups, including their representatives, and inform them of that. And this one was pretty well informed early on.
Thank you.
And we did notify Loxahatchee Groves and ITID and the other Avenir Development District and Seminole Improvement District and Westlake.
Right. Commissioner Marino, you recognize.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank everybody that came out here today, and to all those that sent emails. I'm on record as saying I am in favor of 6 through lanes and dedicated in and out lanes for the communities. I think 8 through lanes is way too many. I think if we have 6 laning, we have the 4 lanings as you show from Seminole Pratt to, what street is that? Hall?
Hall, yes.
Hall, okay. That is still, right now, is 2 lanes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Seminole Pratt is going to be 4 lanes?
Correct.
And that's it?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't see the 8 laning as a necessity, and from the safety perspective, the more lanes you have, the faster people go. We are looking at our planning perspective from the past. This is also, by the way, North Lake is considered a rural parkway. I don't see 8 lanes as being a rural parkway. So I would actually like to make a motion to deny. Thank you. And I look for a second on this one, please.
We have a motion from Commissioner Marino and a second from Commissioner Bernard to deny. Right? All right. Can
we take roll, please?
1 second.
When you're ready.
I'll be supporting Commissioner Marino's motion for exactly the same reasons as she has outlined. I do expect that they will have deceleration lanes when you complete your 6 laning. They'll have deceleration lanes and acceleration lanes into the community. So, right. We'll do a roll call vote. Thank you.
Just for clarification, it's on the motion to deny. We're doing the roll call, correct?
Correct. This is a motion to deny on a roll call vote.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Marino?
It is a yes to deny.
That's correct.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnett?
Yes.
Commissioner Baxter?
No.
Commissioner Bernard?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sachs? Yes. Mayor Weiss?
Yes.
6-1.
Thank you. All right. We have dispensed with this item, and we will be taking a recess. It's now 1:45. And we will be back at 1:45. We have an hour break now for lunch. We'll see you back here. So we're in recess.
Crazy, got a whole hour. Yeah.
Oh, it is an hour.